Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
Yeah, doing something at the Viper Room and then trying to come here the next day. The Viper Room is just notorious. Like, even when you're in the building, it just feels like, ugh.
It is notorious.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the only way I'd ever been in there was through that, the door on the side street there.
Uh-huh.
And but they, they had all the cameras out and took me around I'd never come in through the door on Sunset before, even recognize the place.
No, I've never been through that door either.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've only been there once. I was there for a comedy show. It just feels weird. There's certain buildings that just have bizarre history.
Yeah, well, Shooter was telling me last night, man, River Phoenix died on the sidewalk right out that door I didn't know that. I thought it was in front of the whiskey for some reason.
No, it was the Viper Room.
I never realized that.
Yeah. It's a fucked up place. Hey, man, nice to meet you.
Pleasure's all mine, Joe. Thanks
I
for
love
having
your
me.
music.
Really?
Yeah. Well, my friend Jake turned me on to you. Your music is like, you've lived a life. You can't fake that. You know what I mean? There's something about certain dudes' voices and songs. They're like, all right, that guy's done some living. You can't create that with AI.
Right?
They're going to try.
Everybody, it's crazy. We're kind of reaching singularity,
Yeah.
where nobody can tell the difference.
I know. I think we're right about there. There was a new one that just got released today. Did you hear the new one today? It's even better than the Google one. That was insane. It was released last week. Yeah, it's weird.
What are you talking about?
Some new AI engine that does video. I'll send it to you, Jamie. It's pretty incredible. The way they're able to make stuff now, where it looks exactly like real human beings. Like it doesn't. It
can't tell
doesn't
the
look
difference.
fake even a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you, Jamie. It's called Byte Dance. So is that the China one?
Oh, that's the company.
Oh, okay.
ByteDance is the company that owns like TikTok and stuff.
Oh, yeah, China.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. This is their new AI. So this is all fake people, all done by computers, indistinguishable. It's like, it's very strange. You got it?
Yeah.
Throw that up. Give me some sound. You got to click on it. This is all fake. I mean, what the fuck, man? We are living in the weirdest time ever, Charley Crockett.
Oh man, you're right.
This is the weirdest time ever to be alive because we're so close to not being able to tell what's real and what's fake. We're so close. I mean, we're essentially right there with video, and then eventually it's going to move into some sort of perception. It's going to be feel. You're going to be able to put a helmet on and whoosh, go into some bizarre world.
And you can't stop it.
You can't stop it.
It's coming.
It's coming. And the people that are working on it in America, like, we have to, because China's working on it. I'm like, okay, I guess that's just what we're doing.
Space race, even if it's just a show.
Yeah, it's essentially the Manhattan Project for artificial intelligence. There's a race around the world.
Joe, did we go to the moon?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. It makes you sound fucking completely insane to say it, but
I lost a lot of friends when I was younger when I started talking like that.
I did too. I gained a lot of friends too, though. I gained a lot of listen, man, I've talked to scientists that don't want to talk about it publicly.
Yeah.
Scientists.
Well, see, you know what I figured? I figured that would be the one time in the history of civilization that human beings got to a new place and said, nah, I'm good, and turned around. And
Exactly.
I don't want to look around there anymore.
Well, Bart Sabrell, he's this researcher that's been doing these documentaries on the moon landing, and he's been saying it's fake since, like, I met him sometime in the early 2000s, I believe, and he put out this documentary called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and he's got a great quote, and he says, there's not a single thing that's not easier, faster, and cheaper to reproduce today from 1969 except the moon landing. It's the one thing. Well, and everybody go, oh, but they spent so much money. Why would they spend the money on that again? Well, why would they spend money on all the things they spend money on? Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. The moon has trillions of dollars in rare minerals on it. There's all sorts of shit on the moon that would be very beneficial to society. And it was always going to be that we're going to have a base on the moon and they were going to use that to go to other places. I don't think so. I mean, if you look at the way they filmed it, like when you watched it on television, the people that watched it on television, it was the first time ever where there was a news thing where the news stations, the networks didn't have a direct feed. What they had was they filmed the moon landing. They showed it on a projection screen, and then the networks pointed their camera at the projection screen. That's why it looks so shitty.
Wow. Do you remember there was a movie that came out? It wasn't that far back, and it's all about this, like a legit movie. And I should remember this actor's name because he's getting better and better known. He's a really great actor. He played the lawman in Killers of the Flower Moon that shows up there at near the end and finally kind of takes them down. But he's been in a lot of other stuff, and it's this really great movie about faking the moon landing and all that stuff for, like, American kind of cultural and economic dominance over Russia and all that.
Oh, so it's like
it's recent.
Oh, okay. Hey, Jamie, can you tell Jeff to bring in some coffee? Oh, yeah. So it's a drama.
It's a drama. Yeah, it's a Hollywood movie.
Oh, Jamie will find out what it is when he gets back.
Yeah, I only saw it once, but it was good. And you know this actor because he's been everywhere, man. He's been in everything. I should know his name. I need to call him out. I think I saw him at the airport in Burbank a few months ago, actually.
It seems like a stupid thing to say, but I don't think it is. I don't think. And then after COVID, realizing how much stuff they can lie about, how much stuff the government can hide, how much stuff that people will just accept as being true, despite all the evidence to the contrary, how much experts will go along with things, how easy it is to keep a secret. It's not that hard to keep a secret, especially a secret that is essentially set up to let us think, sir.
Dang, that's how I know my wife stopped by.
Yerba mate? Is that what you're into?
I love them, man.
Yeah, they're good.
You know why I like it, really? I didn't realize it for like a year or two, and now I realize it because it tastes just like Coca-Cola.
Does it really?
It does. It's close. I think that's the secret. It tastes like Coca-Cola.
Yeah. I would like to try the original Coca-Cola with cocaine in it.
Oh, shit.
I wonder what that was like.
Non-habit forming.
Yeah, allegedly.
Right?
Yeah, another lie.
Was it true, right, that Bear at first had heroin in it or opium?
Really?
The original
Bear
version
aspirin?
of it? Yeah,
really?
The original product.
We'll find that out.
Yeah, I think it did.
Well, that makes sense. I'm sure. That's real great for headaches. I mean, more lies, right? How many times have we been lied to?
But you know what it is? It's I think it's I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think it's a perception thing, right? With it's like planting that flag on the moon was a cultural thing.
Yeah.
An American pop culture thing.
Sure.
Right?
Well, they wanted us to be dominant militarily over Russia.
Shit worked.
Yeah. I mean, sort of, kind of.
Kind of, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely are dominant over, militarily. We definitely were back then, essentially. Here it is. Heroin. Woo! Wow. Bear had heroin.
Non-habit forming.
Right.
I got to get the non-habit forming kind.
But I mean, like, what is the difference between that and doctors prescribing OxyContin? It's not that much. Sears Roebuck once sold heroin. Jesus Christ. Must have been a wild time back then. Man,
that's a great that's a great illustration there.
Yeah, look at that. 2 needles, 2 vitals of heroin, only $1.50. Less than $50 adjusted for inflation. Wow. This is the 19th century. So the 1800s Sears catalog used to offer a heroin kit.
I think the actor you're talking about was Jesse Plemons, but I don't know what
that's
movie you're
him, bro.
talking about.
See if you could find
Jesse Plemons. Just
it. You
Google
could type,
moon.
yeah, moon.
I did. Well, flowers of summer moon keeps popping up.
But
It goes to
do,
the flower
but
moon.
do, do space.
Discovery.
The Discovery. That's 2015. No, 2017.
Try Jesse Plemons' moon conspiracy or space conspiracy.
Huh. Are you sure it wasn't AI? Because there's a lot of those. I thought Keanu Reeves really was in a new Dracula movie. Fake?
I don't know. I'm just gonna look. I'm just.
Possibly fake. What was the other question we had? Bayer heroin. Yeah, man, they've been tricking people for a long fucking time. You know, if they can make money, they'll trick you.
Yeah.
Back then, they were probably being tricked themselves. People didn't really understand what was addictive and what wasn't. You know, doctors used to recommend cigarettes for people with emphysema. You got
crazy.
asthma?
Yeah.
You need cigarettes.
Yeah, they were drinking. Athletes are drinking Coca-Cola on the court.
Well, you know who drinks Coca-Cola? Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, after training, would drink Coca-Cola. And there's actually some science to that. Like having sugar, like right after a really hard workout, actually replenishes glucose in the body.
Like Gatorade.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. As long
My
as you're,
wife's got me
working out.
drinking Gatorade again.
That shit's not good for you. No, there's better versions of electrolytes, you know?
Yeah, you're right.
Electrolytes are good for you. Gatorade's okay. It's got a lot of shit in it. You
Yeah.
know? Corn syrup and
There you go.
here it is.
Fly Me to the Moon. Channing Tatum.
Oh, Channing Tatum.
Woody Harrelson.
Is that it?
Oh, that's the one.
Scarlett
That's it?
Johansson.
Wait,
Came out
that's-
in 2024.
2024. So
That's the one. Yeah, he's not even in it. No, he is in it, I think. But
historical romantic comedy drama. Huh. Tasked with creating a false moon landing.
Apple TV. Didn't see it.
Interesting.
what year was it?
Came out last year, like a year ago.
I never even heard of it.
Oh, I think it's still.
How do you have a movie with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson and you never heard of it? Isn't that crazy? There's too many goddamn movies. Bro, you know what I saw last night?
I think I'm still thinking of a different one, but there's another one.
There's another one? Really?
I think so. I saw it, man. It was a wild movie, and they realize that the whole landing is being faked, and then I mean, I won't want to spoil it, but then they get taken out.
Apparently,
Moon landing, JFK. I mean, what's the damn difference?
yeah, there's a lot of those, man. There's a lot of. I mean, there's almost nothing. Vietnam, Gulf of Tonkin. There's almost nothing from history that's exactly as we're being told. Almost nothing.
Yeah,
It's all a crock of shit.
It's Coke and Pepsi, because I was thinking like, that's the one thing that they did that everybody liked, and then they've kept that as long as they keep that flavor.
Right.
Right? They can muscle everybody out. It's like that's like my
RC Cola, shit like that. Yeah. Nobody's into that.
Yeah, and only if you couldn't afford the Coca-Cola price.
Right.
And the Coke machine.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
When I was a kid, that was the only reason we drank RC Colas, because it was 25 cents.
Right, because it was cheap. That's it. And you drank it and you knew it wasn't Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah. They tried New Coke. Do you remember that? When I was a kid, God, I think I was in high school. They came up with a new formula of Coca-Cola somewhere around the 80s, I think. It was terrible. They tried
rioted.
a new Coke, and everybody's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why would you get rid of Coke? It's perfect."
Yeah. Don't change that. They can
Yeah.
they can change and try everything else and buy everybody out as long as they keep Coca-Cola flowing.
Yeah, and then Pepsi's always like for weirdos, people who prefer Pepsi.
I never liked it.
Yeah, it's weird.
I like Dr. Pepper.
Well, Coca-Cola is to this day flavored with cocaine. Do you know that?
You mean like
The coca leaves. That's the secret to the flavor of Coca-Cola. Right. Coca-Cola, the company that makes Coca-Cola, they are the biggest producers of medical grade cocaine. For real.
Wow.
So they take the coca leaves, they extract the flavonoids out of the coca leaves, and they extract the cocaine. So there's no cocaine in Coca-Cola. But then they take those coca leaves and the flavor goes into Coca-Cola, and then the cocaine goes into medical cocaine.
wow.
Yeah. To this day.
Wow.
I think they're the only company that's allowed to use coca leaves. I think they're grandfathered in. I think that's exactly. Is that how it works? I believe they're grandfathered in. But to this day, that's what they use as I sniffle. But these are real sniffles, folks. These are allergy sniffles. I watched the fucking craziest movie last night. The Substance. Have you heard of that movie?
I've heard of it.
That's that new Demi Moore movie.
Yeah, I was afraid to watch it.
Holy shit, man.
It's intense.
Oh, my God. One of the most insane movies I've ever seen in my life. It's about this lady who's getting older, and someone approaches her with this new experimental drug that allows you to live as a young person for 7 days, and then you have to switch back to the old person for 7 days. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it was fucking insane. Like I left, I was like, I gotta watch something stupid on YouTube for a couple hours before I go to bed because I'm weirded out by this movie.
Yeah, that's the reason I haven't watched it yet. I've hard time I'm just saying. Guys, I never liked like the sensory overload like horror movies.
Oh yeah,
I like classic horror movies.
This is a sensory overload times 10. I mean, it's fucking insane. It's an insane movie. It's really good. I mean, it really grips you. It's very entertaining, but just good Lord.
Have you seen Uncut Gems?
Yes, loved that movie.
Isn't that a good movie?
Oh my God.
It was like a little much for me, but it was so good, and it wasn't so crazy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I grew up with a lot of gambling addicts. So for that movie like really hit home for me. I was like, oh God, gee, like got anxiety.
Howard,
like,
is that his name? Howie Howard? You know,
is
Sandler's character.
that what his name is, Howie?
Yeah, and he's selling diamonds on 42nd Street or whatever.
Yeah.
That's every manager in the music business. Is that
Oh,
guy?
really?
A lot of them.
Bunch of gambling addicts?
They're that guy right there. You know, they're juggling all these balls in front of you, which is fine. I don't mind guys juggling. What I don't like is when somebody's got all these balls in the air, they're juggling in front of me, and they're like, "Charlie, I'm not juggling."
Oh yeah, the music business. Yeah. Well, there he is. He's great in that movie too.
Man, he's incredible.
You know, I never knew he could act dramatically. You know, I mean, he's always been great in comedies, but he's incredible in that movie. Incredible. I mean,
He had another one he did that was like a serious flick way back. You remember Punch Drunk Love? Did you ever see that one?
No, I never saw that.
That's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I never saw it.
Yeah.
But Uncut Gems, the gambling aspect of it, like that sickness, that the gambling sickness is a wild sickness.
I grew up around gamblers too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my uncle was always a big gambler, and my cousin and I spent a lot of time in casinos with him down in New Orleans on the Mississippi coast and all that. And,
Oh, riverboat gamblers.
man, yep,
Those
exactly.
are the craziest.
Man, I didn't mind. You know, he let me and my cousin run all over the place.
Oh,
So we were stoked.
so
know?
you like the fact that he was a degenerate.
Yeah. Oh, and anytime he won, like if he won big, we used to play his bingo. He used to run this bingo hall in New Orleans, and me and my cousin both of us with those bingo daubers, we could play 9 card pages for him. We got that good that we could keep up with it, and because he was running the place, nobody in there ever said shit about me and my cousin being like, 8 and 11 or whatever. And if we hit though, it was always a good time. It was Toys R Us and fried shrimp.
With how much your privacy is being invaded online, VPNs are no longer just a nice thing to have. It's a necessity. Some people think, I don't need a VPN because I have nothing to hide. But that's exactly what data brokers want you to think, because their profits depend on you having nothing to hide. What you do online is your business, and if you want to keep it your business, you need ExpressVPN. With ExpressVPN, 100% of your online activity travels through secure, encrypted servers. It hides your IP address, so no one can use it to track and sell your online activity, and your privacy is restored. ExpressVPN is also a great tool to secure your sensitive information from hackers. If you're using public Wi-Fi, like at a hotel, airport, or coffee shop, anyone can hijack your connection and access your most sensitive information. With ExpressVPN, you know that your passwords and banking info are safe and secure. ExpressVPN is the #1 ranked VPN by the experts at CNET and The Verge. And right now, you can get an amazing deal. They're offering 4 extra months free if you go to expressvpn.com/Rogan or tap the banner. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can get your 4 free months by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in the description. For some people, that's their juice, man. That's what keeps them going in life. Just that next bet, I grew up around a lot of pool halls, and when I was in my early 20s. And I was just around so many people that just live for gambling. They would go straight from off-track betting right to the pool hall. And, they'd bet on anything. They'd bet on 2 raindrops coming down a window pane. They'd bet on roaches. They'd bet on anything. You name it. They'd flip a coin for 10. I saw dudes flip a coin for thousands of dollars. A guy would win a tournament. Like, this is like a famous thing in pool. Guys would win a tournament, win $10,000, flip a coin, lose the whole thing. And you had to have heart. You had to be that was like part of the culture. You had to be willing to bet.
Right.
And everybody's always, because the only
And
way
take
it's
the loss.
fun. Yeah, the only way it's fun is if money's constantly flowing. So if someone's trying to be conservative, someone's trying to save them, they called them a nit. Like, you're a nit. Well, they didn't like you. Nobody likes a nit. Like, those are the guys that get shunned by the pool hall. They're bad action.
Where'd you grow up?
Well, all over the place, really. But
Where were those pool halls?
New York. Well, I moved to New York when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, like 23. And that's when I got indoctrinated into pool culture.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just the most fun group of degenerates and weirdos and outcasts. And, as a comedian, I never felt like I fit in normal society, and then I'm around those dudes. I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are just like me. You don't fit in either. Like, you're a bunch of fucking weirdos.
Man, what I just thought about, Joe, when I was on the street in New York, I played up there, and I'm sure but I'd play on the street all day, and at first I was playing in the parks, and then I moved downtown. I was trying to play on street corners in the villages and all that, and you're dealing with traffic and cops, and that's what drove me down into the subway platforms, and those were really competitive too. So even there, I started playing at the stations that nobody wanted, or weren't desirable, or weren't nobody's really competing for the spots or whatever. And I would do that all day, and then I would hit open mics all over the 5 boroughs every night, everywhere. And the comedy guys were always the coolest, because all of them, because we weren't in competition. Right. Like, I know comedians can be really competitive on the circuit, and obviously same thing on the music side. But I ended up like playing I would open up for a lot of guys, like I'm like at the Red Door and like in the circuit there in the city and shit.
Oh, cool.
Open guys up with 2 or 3 songs or play their breaks or whatever. And, all the comedy folks liked me, I think, because, I wasn't one of them.
Yeah,
We were cousins or something.
Right. There's always been a relationship like that. Like, Oliver Anthony was at the Mothership this weekend. And it's the first music act we've ever had perform there.
That's cool.
Yeah, you could perform there too if you ever want to, man.
I know where it's at.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I like that you got it down there, man.
It's a great spot. 6th Street is just such a fucking wild place.
It is.
To have it right there is perfect. And to have it at the old Ritz, it's amazing. So, it was great.
Is that what it is in the old Ritz?
Yeah. Yeah, we bought the old Ritz. Yeah. We have to keep the Ritz sign, because it's one of those historical buildings.
Oh, it's a great sign.
Oh, it's a great sign. It's got so much history. In the tunnel on the way to the stage, there's a big picture of Stevie Ray Vaughan on the stage in 1983.
Oh.
Yeah.
You like SRV?
Fuck yeah.
Come on.
Come on, man. Come on. He's the only dude who could play Voodoo Child. Doesn't make me sick.
Man.
Other than Hendrix.
That's right.
It's 2 dudes.
Yeah, you're right.
Hendrix and him. I mean,
That's
other
it.
people. I'm sure other people can do it. I've never heard it.
Fuck that. Just them. Oh, yeah, man.
There's certain songs that you can't fuck with. Although I did see, one time I saw Honey Honey and Gary Clark Jr. play Midnight Rider, and I didn't think anybody else could play Midnight Rider. And to hear Gary's song with Midnight Rider, with that, like Gary's signature sound.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that signature guitar
You seen
sound.
Gary? You've seen Gary live?
Oh, yeah, I'm friends with Gary.
Man.
Yeah, I've seen him a bunch of times.
Yeah, I love Gary, too.
I love that dude.
That guy.
He's so good.
Man, I remember.
I gave something to him, and I got it for you, too.
What is it?
This is a real, genuine woolly mammoth guitar pick that is made out of woolly mammoth tusk.
Damn, that is something fierce, bud.
10,000 plus years old. And then that's a shout out to my friend John Reeves from the Boneyard in Alaska. I got a buddy of mine who has this spot in Alaska where they just pull all kinds of crazy mastodon, woolly mammoth, fucking cave bear, all kinds of skulls, all kinds of wild shit out of this one piece of property where a lot of animals died. And he's taken a lot of the woolly mammoth. That's where I got this too. This is a tooth. This is a tooth that was carved
Wow.
into a piece of art with a mammoth in it.
That's a big old goddamn tooth, son.
Imagine.
Can I see
Yeah,
how heavy that is?
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy, right?
It's beautiful too, man.
Yeah. So that guitar pick is yours, brother.
Man, thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Any cool guys who play guitar, give them one of them picks.
You know, I've never been good at holding a pick. So I learned how to play with my hands, and because I could never hold a pick well. But a lot of guys I know that are really great pickers, they play these really hard picks, you know, and can real precise with them. And I still can't hold them.
You learned with your fingers?
Yeah, I never held. I just couldn't hold the pick. I would try to hold it and it'd get sideways, and I never like all this, you know, like the straight cowboy chords, you know, C, F, G, whatever. I couldn't hold any of those chords. Like when I was teaching myself, the positioning was weird for me, you know, and so like I kind of threw away the book and I did what you call choking the chicken on the fret, you know, kind of hold it like you're choking the chicken. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I developed my style. And then I learned all the regular chords many years later, you know.
Are you totally self-taught?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. When did you start?
I was 17. My mama got me a guitar out of a pawn shop in South Irving.
Wow.
This Honer guitar.
And you just started messing around with it?
Yeah. You know, my mama had tried to get me on the piano when I was younger, and I just couldn't focus. And I don't know. 17 was like the right age. I needed it, you know. Started banging around on that guitar, and I mean, it must have sounded terrible. And me and my mama lived in this little ass place, this tiny place, and I was like scared to play in front of her, you know. But I was at first, and I would say, "Mama, am I any good?" You know, and she wasn't gonna lie to me. And she said, "Well, son, when you play, people will believe you." She wasn't gonna lie to me and tell me I was good. But she was trying to say, you know, just be honest with your music and the rest will take care of it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
When you play, people will believe you.
That's what she said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next time anybody believed in me wasn't until I started hitchhiking. And I remember because I've been out in California a bunch recently. And I had caught a ride with this guy. We were playing at this place called The Shanty up in Farmers Branch, in Dallas-Fort Worth area years ago. And there was this witch lady they called her a witch. This kind of magic woman who had a barn out behind her house, and they called it the shanty. And she would have people over on the weekends and just kind of any random night, travelers, misfits, whatever, back there in the barn, and everybody'd be telling stories and trading songs and, you know, taking potions, stuff like that. Long story short, this guy I met one night, his parents had worked for Texas Instruments, and he had disowned them, you know, because his parents were like scientists, and he woke up one day as a young man and realized his parents were manufacturing like weapons, you know, and I never saw this guy again, but that was his whole deal why he left Texas.
Oh, wow.
And he was just back visiting this gal that had this shanty deal. And I talked that guy that he promised he was describing this town of Boonville, which is this community in Mendocino County, Northern California. And the way he was describing it to me in this barn or whatever, it sounded like the Garden of Eden or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wanted so badly to go with him, and he promised me and this other guy that was playing guitar too that he would take us. And we passed out at the lady's house. When we woke up that next morning, he was still there. And I was like, "Man, you ready to go to California?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" "What are you talking about?" Like when I pressed him, he's like, "Man, I was on acid." I was on acid. I don't remember any of that. I don't have any room for you. And I begged him like my life depended on it. And he took me and this old boy who was playing guitar, actually taught me a lot of songs back then. He took us to California. But as we got closer to Boonville and we were talking to naive young Texas boys who had never been anywhere, he realized he, you know, didn't want us going anywhere near those hippies he was living with there in Boonville. So he left us, he pulled into like a grocery store and left us in this parking lot in Vacaville. And that's when I really started hitchhiking in my life, is like when we kind of got abandoned in a parking lot.
Wow.
Kind of along the 5, right?
How old were you?
21, probably 22, something like that. And I had done a little bit of hitching before, like around the South, Texas and like Louisiana, but I'd never really been way out there. And anyway, I started hitchhiking around because I had to. But I remember it was in California the first time by anybody besides my mama ever looked at me playing guitar as it having any kind of value, you know, like any economic value, or like it was a trade of, you know, recognition, you know. It was kind of the first time I was out there.
So you'd been playing about four or 5 years back then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was playing outside because our place was so small. I wasn't playing outside to like make money or anything like that. I would go to this park, had like a baseball diamond on it, sit on these bleachers or whatever. And I'll never forget the first time anybody threw like just a pocket full of change in my case. I'm sure it's because they, you know, were worried about me or felt bad for me or whatever, you know. And it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that money hit the case and then like a light went off or anything, you know. It was a slow, gradual deal. Like I was playing outside because there wasn't enough room to play in the house or whatever, you know. And then, you know, I got in a lot of trouble with the law, which kind of put me on the road. And
what was the trouble with the law?
You know, I've said it a lot, and it's funny, I'm a lot better known than I used to be, so it's like you say stuff about your family, and they hear about it, and
They get mad.
Yeah. But it's so funny, because it's all over the internet, and they're the ones that had the government on their ass, not me. But anyways, yeah, we just kind of, you know, shit hit the fan, got up in the newspapers. My brother didn't go to high school. You know, neither my sister, neither of them went to high school. They both dropped out, you know, because I'm from South Texas. I was born in the Rio Grande Valley. They were born up in Dallas, but my mama had moved down there to South Padre Island area, McAllen, Harlingen area there. And anyway, it's poor and pretty hard living down there. And, you know, hell, I didn't wear shoes till I was probably 9 or 10 years old, you know,
Really?
playing outside. And my brother and sister, they're 10 years older than me, half brother and sister, and we have different daddies. And they really lived wild, you know. Things were pretty tough back then or whatever. I'm telling you that background because my brother became a hustler, you know, because he had to, because of a lack of education, lack of access, you know, because of poverty. And I've honestly always respected him for that, you know. He used to take me around door to door selling newspapers when I was 11, right? And you want to know why? Because I had broken my arm. And he realized if you carted that young boy out in front of those apartments when that lady answered the door, and it's these two brothers and one of them's got a broken arm, she's gonna go ahead and subscribe.
Yeah, she
You
was
know?
bad.
Yeah, and in a nutshell, man, he, you know, through all that stuff, you know, he started out as a door-to-door salesman, you know, hustling newspaper subscriptions, right? Then he started like selling neckties and like men's clothing door to door in downtown Dallas office buildings, you know, and as a very young man. And eventually he graduated to, you know, hard knock boiler room type of guys. You know, you keep knocking on those doors in that Wild West business scene of towns like Dallas, you know, or Houston, you know, eventually you're going to find what you're looking for. And he got in with some big old wolves, you know, and eventually it knocked everybody out, and a lot of people died. A lot of people went to prison. And, you know, we were in the paper, and I found myself not being able to get a bank account, and nobody I knew would go near me, you know. And so it ended up being like a Bob Marley type of thing, you know. Like, you know, he said, if you're not living good, travel wide. Right? And I literally just walked out of town because, you know, we had scarlet letters on our chest, and that's when I really started learning how to stand behind that guitar and write songs, and slowly but surely start I learned how to play basically in front of people, and people just were giving me money kind of over time. That and, food and shelter in exchange for my story at their back door.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. You think your family's got drama? Wait till you meet the Buckleys. I'm talking about the new Netflix drama, The Waterfront. Set in a coastal town in North Carolina, it follows the powerful Buckley family who've ruled Havenport for decades. But now their fishing empire is falling apart fast, and their legacy is on the line. There's power grabs, addiction, legacy, love. From the creator of Scream and Dawson's Creek, The Waterfront is messy, twisty, and totally binge-worthy. Watch The Waterfront now, only on Netflix. Do you ever wonder, how things could have gone? Because things turned out great. Look, you're a popular music artist now.
Yeah.
Worldwide. You're famous.
I'm surprised you know what I'm surprised by? I'm surprised I never got heavily addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
I am. It was my sister passed away 10 years ago from substances and hard living and all that kind of stuff. And hell, my whole family's in AA. Everybody, top to bottom, left to right, turn them inside out. I think about it a lot. But I really do, and I remember I was living with that guy who was at the shanty that was playing guitar. He's on the football team. I knew him from sports. His name was Daniel Harmon. And he went out there to California with me that first time. And we were living on farms, and I was working for ganja farmers, working on horse farms, working for winemakers, all kind of people, just doing grunt work for them, doing the fence work they didn't want to do. Moving soil for people, digging ditches, laying pipe across really hard, rocky roads. Not anything anybody can do. You just need, broad back and to be young.
Right.
And, but before I ever left Texas, I moved in with his sister, and I remember, and she was just my friend. I was never in a relationship with her or anything, but she was working at Silver City in West Dallas, the Gentlemen's Club, at 18, and making more money than anybody I'd ever seen. The girl was 18, and just making crazy, crazy money. And she let me rent a room from her and kind of gave me a deal and all that. And I ended up writing a song kind of about it more recently called Easy Money that I did with Shooter on the Lonesome Drifter record. And that's kind of that thing, if you're a poor kid from Texas, there's no such thing, as easy money. But I can't remember why I was telling you that, but it was hard on. I just remember you'd see young women working in strip clubs, making big money, and the ones that I was around and have been around, very, very hard for that line of work. My line of work, your line of work, not to become addicted.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with, a lot of the best best artists I ever saw struggled with addiction, But I have, in that way, I have been very fortunate, very, very fortunate.
How did you avoid it?
I don't know. You know what it is, man? I never had no kind of tolerance. I've always been I just get drunk off of one drink. And it's never changed. Well, I just felt it all really strong,
That's probably good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a survival instinct too.
I've never really thought about why, but I have considered it because my brother's been through, he did a lot of time in prison, and, my sister had, and my mama, they both had their first kid, when they were teenagers, A lot of it I do credit to my mama. It's she told me something I remember that stuck with me. I've been saying this all the time, Joe. And we had a lot of trouble in our family, and a lot of people that we knew, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of trauma. But when my mama kind of got out of that, she kind of is the person in the family that said, I'm going to change the trajectory of this line now in my generation. And she didn't have an education, and, she took herself back to school after I was born, and cleaned up her act and got out of it and isolated me from a lot of that shit. And which I think is a big part of the reason that I maybe didn't.
Right, you had a role model.
Yeah, I had a role model.
Yeah.
You know, there was no male role models, at least not at home. They were only pro athletes and coaches at school. You know, I mean, it's increasingly difficult for young men to find strong men of courage and vision that can help them grow into good men too. I mean, it seems almost impossible these days. It's unbelievable.
It's
right?
very difficult to find in your personal life.
It's hard, man.
You have to find it in other ways. You have to find it people online or
I found it
in the
in
world.
Athletes in like excellence in like athletics.
Right.
You know,
where the only way you can get there is hard work.
yeah, and odds are stacked against you, and it
Yeah.
requires incredible focus. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm always so you know in such awe of those people when they're able to succeed like that. But what I wanted to say to you that my mama said, she said, "What happened to you when you were young is not your fault, but now you're a man, and it's your responsibility." And I've been living off of that, you know, for a long time, you know, because it's like if you don't take responsibility at some point, man, it'll never leave you alone.
Right. You can't think that you're a victim. Yeah. You can't think that it's not your fault. You got to take responsibility. That's hard for people to accept when they know they've been victimized. When
Yeah.
they know they've been dealt a shitty hand of cards, you can just kind of wallow in it. But that's a trap. That's a trap that'll fuck you up. It'll fuck up everybody around you too.
Damn right.
Yeah, but it's a mindset thing. It's like you can think your way out of that. You have to have an example though. Either you have to be your own example, or you have to find an example of someone else who thought their way out of it.
And for my brother, for all the trouble that he's been in, you know, in a way, like, you know, I think he also was trying to help me, you know, and so, you know, his hustle and his work ethic in another sense, you know, that's been helpful to me too, you know, because I remember he used to hand out flyers and shit all over the place. And when I'd be like a teenager, he'd be like, "Listen to me now. If you leave an event at the other day that you're handing out flyers and you're flooding it with promotion, if you can even see that pavement underneath the, you know, pamphlets that you're handing out, you didn't promote it."
Wow.
That's what he used to tell me. I was like 15, 16, and that mentality came in handy for me because, you know, I was just a street performer, just an itinerant performer. And, you know, I did have to learn how to market myself, you know, and part of the reason that I was, man, sometimes being underestimated is like the best thing that could happen to you, you know, because I think one of the biggest challenges for, like, in the music industry at least, is that the way the business works now is they're almost exclusively, you know, you ever seen Moneyball? Brad Pitt flick Moneyball?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How they introduced that concept of looking at the data to, like, maximize the potential of the athletes and all that kind of stuff, which has totally changed the game, you know, all the games. I kind of call it money guitar, right? Which is like, you know, the business is seeding the young amateur, and for the way that they spend and invest and can move on if it doesn't work out, it's like kind of a, you know, it's kind of a pump and dump, right. You know? And the thing about that, and it works. Like if somebody has like some of these guys, like you mentioned Oliver Anthony and some of these guys, they have a viral hit out of nowhere. They've never played a venue or anything in their life. You know, it can happen really fast. And then obviously there's tremendous challenges, you know, down the line trying to keep that, you know, astronomical, you know, quick rise up there. But back in the day, the business deals weren't any good. You know that. They were terrible.
Right.
What they were good about, though, in a lot of cases, was developing these artists on these rosters, even if they were taking advantage of these poor farm boys taking advantage, of, poor black artists from the South or women or whatever. Nobody was getting a good deal, basically. But, like guys like Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, those guys were making 2-3 records a year.
Wow.
And you think about when Waylon breaks through, right, in the mid-'70s, and like as he's doing, coming into his own in 1974, 1975. I mean, how many records in is he at that point?
Wow.
Well, how many? I mean, Willie's Red-Headed Stranger, which revolutionized country music, or like the Outlaws compilation record that the two of them were on together, which was basically a compilation and kind of marketed as the outlaw subgenre. Those guys were 15, 16, 17 records in,
Right.
Aretha Franklin popped off on her 9th or 10th record.
Wow.
And most of these artists, the way the business works, they won't make 9 or 10 records in their career.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
That is crazy. And what better way to develop than to just keep constantly producing new music and learn along the way?
In being neglected or misunderstood by the business when I was first dealing with it, it was really a blessing, because I ended up making so many records,
Yeah. The music business has always been so predatory. But it's like, it's the way I describe a lot of things. It's like when you get something that's good combined with a bunch of people that want to make money off that something that's good. Whether it's medicine or whether it's music or even in comedy, you get the same thing. You get a bunch of people that just think they can make money off you.
Man, I always thought comedy was the hardest. Always figured it was the hardest, right? Because you got to make them laugh or they're gonna fucking kill you.
And you have new shit all the time.
There's nothing behind you. There's not even a guitar covering you up.
Right.
It's crazy to me just to watch all those guys do their bit and shit. So I was always amazed by even people going up at like the open mics and like trying out their routine. That always terrified me.
It terrifies me still when I watch open mics. I watch open mics and I watch someone bombing. I got to leave the room because I fear that it's contagious. Like if I was on the road and I didn't get to pick my opening acts, like if I was working at a club and they had some local act in Florida or something like that, and the guy was fucking terrible, I would literally have to like not listen. I'd have to leave the room and just sort of time when I was going to go on stage, so I could go on stage with a fresh mindset. I couldn't think that this audience had been poisoned by this guy's shitty comedy.
I get that.
You know what I mean? It's like it's terrible, and it's like you think that nothing could be funny.
Yeah.
It's like this, like he's hypnotized them
right
into this like mediocre state of mind. Like, I can't listen. I gotta hide.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they could have that strong an effect on the audience like that quick. I mean, somebody can be up there fucking it up like crazy musically, and you kind of get a pass,
right?
Poetic license or whatever.
Well, people, it's tolerable if the guy's into it. He could be into his own music, and you're like, I'm not into it, but he's into it. At least he's like doing his song. If you're doing comedy and the audience is not into it, you're fucked. You're like really fucked. You have to engage those people.
Yeah, I see that. It's unbelievable.
You got to be connected to those people, and you can't fake it. Like, you can't even be saying the words perfectly and not be thinking about it. You have to be thinking about what you're saying. They know. They're little animals. They smell you. They know. They know if you're faking it. And you just got to lock in, man. And you got to learn how to lock in. It takes about 10 years. It takes 10 years of eating shit. Just fucking bombing and traveling around and opening up for people and barely getting by.
That's the same thing with music, though, about the 10-year deal, the 10,000-hour thing. There's no doubt about it.
I think it's probably almost everything.
Yeah.
Almost everything.
Anything you dedicate yourself to. You like Noam Chomsky?
Yeah, sure.
You ever
I like
seen
old Noam Chomsky.
yeah.
So, I listened to him today. I'm like, Jesus, stop talking.
Yeah, he's popping off, isn't he?
Well, he just went the COVID vaccine stuff. He was out of his fucking mind. He wanted people to be isolated and quarantined and taken away from society if they weren't willing to take this fucking experimental shit that turned out to
I
not
haven't
even
kept
work.
up with him in recent years.
Well, he's old, right? And old people, unfortunately, also, he's an academic. So academics tend to trust experts in whatever field they're in. And if he doesn't have an understanding, like he has a deep understanding of how compromised people are politically by money, you know, and he's written some brilliant work on essentially the way the media is compromised and the way, you know, politics are compromised. I don't think he applied that same skepticism towards the pharmaceutical industrial complex.
Which is strange.
Well, people have their blind spots.
Yeah,
we
all do.
And they trust experts, and if he's got experts that are academics, and he trusts them, and also he's old, and old people get real scared of diseases. They get real scared because they know how fucking vulnerable they are. All the people that I knew that were old had the craziest reaction to COVID. Terrified. Even my own parents tried to talk them through some of this stuff. They didn't want to hear it. They only wanted to listen to doctors. I'm like, I don't think this is what they're telling you.
Yeah,
You know?
doctors are crazy. They got a cabinet full of pills that they've been sold to sell you.
And they're incentivized. That's what's really crazy. When I found that out, I learned so much during the pandemic about the medical industry where I just thought they were there to. I'm so naive. I didn't even realize that hospitals are privately owned. I thought these were things set up by the government to make sure that people can get healed.
Right.
You know, I thought it was all about making people better. And
They're not public. The closest thing to public is if they're owned by like a, religious organization,
right.
A church.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And they're just fucking shuffling people in and out, trying to prescribe them as many things, and they're financially incentivized to prescribe things. And then they have extreme overhead because they have liability insurance, they have student loan debt, and they have, a high overhead to keep their practice running. And
Where's Bernie Sanders when you need him?
yeah,
Well, no. See, so I had open heart surgery right here in Austin to fix a
what was wrong with your heart?
valve here. Well, I was born with Wolff Parkinson's white disease. It's an electrical issue in your heart. Basically, like your heart misfires. All this electricity is moving through it all the time. Like a semiconductor or whatever. And there was like a section of it that was like misfiring, and it would cause an arrhythmia with me.
Wow.
And when I was a kid in South Texas, we were told that was all I knew about, and we were told that it was an annoyance. Because I almost died a couple times when I was really, really young from it, and my mama noticed and saved my life a couple times by driving in, into the city there into San Benito, and them hooking me up to all the wires and saving me. Anyways, they told me as I got older that it would just, I could get, an ablation for it, where they apply heat basically and close this electrical channel that's stuck in a loop or whatever. But it wasn't life-threatening. And then I got out here, I was on the street for years. And then when I was coming off the street through kind of blues jams, and I had been, I was working on ganja farms and had started selling, weed in the mail and all that to kind of get off street, buy myself some better clothes, get myself a good guitar and an amp and all that, started showing up at blues jams. And then I could because everything takes money, like problem with being a street player was you even go play the open mics that have a 2 damn drink minimum.
Right.
And they'd see my crazy ass come in and knew that I was, pretty wild, and they didn't have any money. And I didn't smell good. So they really didn't like me for the longest time or whatever. But through blues jams, I started leading bands in bars, and Deep Ellum. First gig I ever got in Austin was right there at Darwin's Pub, on 6th Street, playing kind of solo in the afternoon. It was the only guy, CJ was the only guy that gave me a gig, even on 6th Street. I always owed him for that. And I think he was giving me $50. He wanted me to get paid out of the well whiskey and those what does he sell over there? Those gyros or whatever the hell he's got over there. Anyway, I get on the road. I get an agent. I was standing out at Green Hall handing CDs out on a street corner because I couldn't get into the show. Handed a guy a CD. His name's Evan Felker. I didn't know who he was at the time, but he's front man for Turnpike Troubadours. I gave him a CD, and he took it home and he listened to it with his then girlfriend and now wife, and lo and behold, his agent, John Folk, called me up and started booking me. And then that's when I started playing the old Red Dirt. I like to call it the Hank Williams circuit, the kind of old country chitlin circuit. John Folk had kind of inherited it from like Buddy Lee Attractions from an earlier generation that goes all the way back to Lucky Moeller and that old South circuit that all the R&B and the hillbilly country boys were on, and Folk kind of inherited it and rebuilt it. And then then Coke and Pepsi came in, CAA and William Morris and Wasserman, and bought it all out, and you had no choice. I mean, they were going to part it out no matter what. And that's the way that it works, right? When you get Coca-Cola's attention, right? And they show up and they're like, good job. You're taking some of our money away from us. We're going to buy you out, son. Right? I think you can refuse them once or twice and they'll come back with a better deal, right? After that, if you keep turning them down, then they put all their energy into knocking you out, Yeah. That's what I mean. As long as Coke doesn't change the flavor of Coca-Cola, right? They can, that gangster shit, all the other gangster shit they do works really well. As long as they don't fuck up the original flavor, right?
Right.
So I'm on that circuit working my ass off. 200 and whatever shows a year for a bunch of years in a row, playing all over the place. Seems like sometimes we play 21 nights in a row out there, for shit kickers at Bonita Creek Hall and punk rock clubs in New Jersey and shit, playing at the fucking, the Saint, that little club, the Saint in Asbury Park. It's like a 40 cap, man. It's a badass place. Anyway, I was like blacking out. I moved up to a bus and shit, and I was like, I was getting really lightheaded. And I'd be sitting in the back of the bus, and I would be so lightheaded, I'd be blacking out a lot, right? Just sitting there, short of breath. But I just thought, I'm grinding. I'm playing all these shows. I'm going as hard as you can go, taking potions, just doing all this dumb shit, working hard. And I was playing at the old Shady Grove here in town that's now closed down. They used to do, it was the KGSR radio thing. Marsha Millam put it on or whatever, and then it turned into, ACL Radio, and then Shady Grove closed down there on Barton Springs or whatever. But I played it a handful of times. First time I played it, there was nobody there. Second time I played it, it was packed, and I had Willie's old tour bus, the Red-Headed Stranger. It was one of the ones he lost in the IRS era that he never got back.
Oh, wow.
And this fucking shyster, Chuck Ligon, I remember some motherfucker was selling this thing on the side of the highway up in Oklahoma. The Red-Headed Stranger with the murals on it and shit. It's a beautiful bus. Somehow this guy gets it. Right? I shouldn't call him a shyster, but he definitely shysted me.
That's a shyster then.
Yeah. The music business is crazy because it's so...
There it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the one, man. Yeah, that's the one. On the other side, it says, driven only by the finest bass players.
Wow.
Because somebody in the band always drove those old buses. I had that bus. I used that bus exclusively for about a year or whatever. And we get off the stage at Shady Grove, and my heart had gone out of rhythm. How did I just say this? I almost died in the back of that bus. I end up finding, because it won't go, here I am, 30-something years old, or in my early 30s. My arrhythmia is out. It's going out, and it's getting harder and harder to get back in, to shock it back into normal rhythm. And I just kept ignoring it because somebody told me in South Texas in the 80s not to worry about it. Anyway, it turned out that my heart had enlarged and all this shit was going on. And I had to get surgery. The long roundabout point that I'm making to you about medical industry that I learned the hard way, man, is like no one's advocating for you. Only you. You have to be your own advocate. They don't give a fuck. They don't. Like, they were just going to automatically put a mechanical valve in my heart, right? Automatically. Didn't present any other options, anything, right? And I get there on the American Heart Association webpage or whatever, because I didn't have insurance at the time or anything. Nothing, you know. The only reason that they covered me at the time was the Affordable Care Act, and I had the right window where they could not deny me, right? Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. And that is absolutely an imperfect system, right? I just didn't have health insurance. So here they are covering me, and probably because I don't have money and they're dealing with, you know, how it is, you know, American business practices or whatever. They're like, here's this mechanical valve. And I go and look it up, Joe, and it's like, you know, if you have a mechanical valve, you automatically are on blood thinner the rest of your life. Automatically. No matter what. And you can't, that's just how it's going to be. It lasts twice as long as a prosthetic valve, which I had not heard of at that point. But that was the whole thing. This can last up to 20 years. But guess what? You have like 300% higher risk of a stroke with a mechanical valve as a bioprosthetic cow valve. And then the third thing was that you can hear that thing clicking. You can hear the valve ticking.
My buddy Everlast has one of those.
Really?
Yeah, he could go like this.
You can hear it.
Yeah, he hit.
And I was reading about that, and man, I'm like neurotic, like I knew. I'm like, I'll never get over it. So that's when I found out about the bovine cow valve.
So it's made out of a cow?
Yeah, Edwards Scientific makes it. I carry a little card around in my wallet with the tag of you know, that product number in case somebody finds me on the sidewalk.
Wow.
You know, and in that
how long does that last?
They're supposed to last around 10 years, and I had mine done in right there at Seton, you know, Seton Medical there on 38th in January 2019. So we're coming back around to it.
So you have to get another operation?
Yeah, but what they did is the way they did it, and here's the thing about, right, medical and anything, right? The medical industry is, I think, really fucked up and really predatory, totally profit driven, and like, you know, people's health and preventative well-being and all that. I mean, we don't give a fuck about that in this country. You know, I mean, there's no money to be made off of people taking care of themselves and eating right and being preventative and like, you know, there's nothing in that. The part about it that is amazing, though, even in the like kind of insanity of all the land of cheap traders, is the technological advancements.
Yeah. The
technological advancements in the medical field, though not really, you know, available to the common person, they are incredible advancements, right? So it's like they're moving so quickly that by the time I need to get another one, I don't think they'll ever have to cut me open again, because they can like go in through a scope now. Wow. They could do it at that time. It was just more experimental, and they didn't want to do it. They were only doing it on really high risk older patients, you know, but I think it's already kind of gone more mainstream from where when they cut me open to like, if I did it right now, I could probably get around cutting it. You know?
So they'll go in through an artery.
Yeah.
And then what do they have to do to it?
Well, so with me, what was happening was so I had the Wolff Parkinson's White. I had to get the ablation first before I could deal with aortic valve disease is what it's called. And what it basically is that over your aorta, there's these three valves that sit over the top of your aorta that they look like a Mercedes symbol is what they look like. It's like the best example. It really looks like a Mercedes symbol. And some people, it's a bicuspid or whatever. Some people are born with two of the three fused together or just one missing altogether. And it turned out that I just missing one. It's like a leaky carburetor, you know? Wow. So like as the time goes, that old carburetor in that truck over time, just leaking more and more and more. Wow. You know? And I mean, I just got lucky, man, because I was like in the back of that fucking bus, and there was this lady driving us back then that like was like holding seances and burning sage over the top of me while I was like laying in the back of that bus, like that was gonna heal me. that shit didn't work. And she doesn't drive me anymore. Get yourself a good bus driver. You have to get a good bus driver. You'll never get good sleep.
Yeah, because you'd be freaking out. You'd be thinking, what if this person falls asleep?
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Especially the late night drives.
Oh, man.
Ooh, late night drives are scary. That highway starts hypnotizing you.
There was this guy, there was a video going around. He drove us around for a little bit. And there was this video passing around the industry. This guy they called Jimbo. It was this bus driver that was like, just a speed freak. And it was like this video of him where he was like on whatever he was on. And somebody had recorded him, or like they'd put a phone up or something because they knew he was nuts. And he was like having one of those fucking like, methamphetamine freakouts, like, driving the bus down the road, and it was getting all passed around the industry. And I saw it because like he was driving us at the time.
Jeez.
I remember we woke up somewhere in New Mexico one morning because we were going on this road all of a sudden. And we get up and I go to the front of the bus, and we're like on some fucking 2-track, caliche fucking dirt road that was like behind a gate in a bus, that bus, right? And I get up there and he's looking all crazy, and the inside door handle of the bus had been pulled off and shit. It was crazy, man. When we got back down here in Texas, man, I never saw a fool again.
Jesus Christ. Well, you got to think, if you're driving buses all through the night, there's a high likelihood you're on amphetamines.
Yeah, exactly.
High likelihood.
Yeah.
It's, for the business, it's like probably the best way to stay awake.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously that shit's very addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And you need it. This band has to get to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They got to get to Cincinnati. It's an 8-hour drive. There's only one way to do it. We got to drive through the night.
And that's why all the old performers were all on pills, and they were getting prescribed. I mean, and they were getting prescribed that shit by the doctor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Does this give you a greater appreciation for life, the value of life, like knowing you almost lost it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't thought about. Immediately after that, I just started thinking about my mortality.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it before.
Of course, everybody feels invulnerable when you're young.
Yeah.
Especially if you're young and you're living that wild, transient, moving around, no roots.
When I was in my 20s, I guess I really, looking back now, I was like, man, I was young. Like, I thought I could live like that forever. I thought I could live hand in mouth and, sleep in people's pastures and, do the gentleman hobo thing forever. But, I was 26.
There's something romantic about that too, right?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. I wouldn't take it back, man. I mean, like, I believe that, I think mental slavery is something that is real. But so much of it is us. Like, we do it to ourselves. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was going to say about Chomsky. I haven't kept up with him in years. But I remember something he said a long time ago that stuck with me, where he was talking about like American, consumerism over the last 100 years. It really kind of illuminated my kind of mind. He was like, there are people working really, really, really hard to eliminate your sense of purpose for the explicit goal of making you a more efficient consumer, right? All human beings live for and desire a life of purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose. It doesn't matter what it is, something that you can dedicate yourself to, the 10,000 hours, the 10 years. It can be, anything, wood making, or your buddy with this ancient tooth that he's carving into this beautiful piece of art, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's like a heavy thing, but I kind of realized when I became a transient that a lot of who I was like this amalgamation of a bunch of people just trying to fucking sell me products, 90s radio just blasting my brain as a kid, right? Like programming that like so much programming is so hard for me to watch because you know that it's only a vehicle for the commercials.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So whenever I'm watching something and as soon as I think that it's not that good, I can't stop thinking about like, well, this is just a vehicle for me to fucking, you know, think I need whatever the fuck they're selling.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like I killed like a lot of the false version of me that I was becoming that I only realized when I walked away from Crystal City. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I could and then I really started becoming, you know, me. That's when I really started becoming me.
A lot of people are prisoners to that their whole life because the only value they place is in how much stuff they're able to acquire. That's the only value that they see in life. They look at numbers on a ledger, so they look at numbers in their bank account, and they look at the stuff they're willing to acquire or that they're able to acquire.
Right.
And that's their only measure of success in this life.
Yeah, the very definition of the word rich has changed so much over the last, 100 years. You know, it's kind of moved entire. It really, richness wasn't a material idea, but it.
What did it used to be?
Richness of life, fullness of life.
Right.
Fulfillment.
Purpose.
Health.
Yeah.
Community.
Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, friends. Yeah, real life. But so many people they forego all that.
Well,
They'll throw everything out the window just for the numbers. For numbers, and they think they're successful.
I mean, it's the way that it's being run, there's no such thing as a free lunch, all this free social media shit ain't free.
No.
No,
you give up your attention. Your attention is very, very
everything.
valuable. Your data,
Privacy.
And your attention. Yeah, your privacy.
The transparent society.
Yeah.
But man, y'all pulled up that AI stuff. I remember I won't tell you the whole thing, but I was playing on the street in Europe when I was younger. I'd met a guy down on the Lower East Side. He's a Danish jazz singer, and he would show up over in the States a couple times a year, and he was doing really well there in Denmark, and the state really sponsors the arts there in a big way, and it's a small country, high quality of life. Like, he really had it made over there, and when he was coming over to the States to play music, it was almost more of a leisure thing for him. Benjamin Augerbach is his name. Great singer, great jazz singer. And he'd show up at the open mics and all this shit, and I think he really liked me because he saw the way that I was living this American gypsy lifestyle. And he eventually helped me get over to Europe, and I played the club circuit in Copenhagen for like 6 weeks or whatever. And I was really rough around the edges, and like the American novelty in the folk and like blues clubs around Copenhagen wore off really quick. And I wound up back on the street, but this time in Europe. And as soon as I started playing on the street in Copenhagen, man, then being a real Texan in Europe in front of tourists on the street, man, that's when I started making money. It was crazy. My money like quadrupled because all of a sudden I was like a truly exotic. Texas is exotic. And everywhere you go in the world, it means something, right? They either want to shake your hand or they step back. And it doesn't matter where you go in the world. There's not an inch of the world that hadn't heard of Texas, and that's and so musically, and I think culturally it means something no matter what, and to play music and be a Texan is worth a lot on its own. You know what I mean? It's a big part of it. It's just being a Texan. Gary Clark Jr. learning how to hold his own under the tradition of Austin blues players in Texas, guitar slingers. I mean, it's second to none in the world,
Yeah.
And so if you've seen them live, you know what it is. And but I remember seeing like there were no self-checkouts at grocery stores and shit in the United States back then, not one. And then I ended up down in France because it was getting cold in Copenhagen, and I had like 200 or 300 kroner left, and I put it all on a bus ticket to Paris because it was my mama's favorite city, and I grew up quite a bit in Louisiana, having some of that French heritage, and I went down there. I'm glad I didn't think about it, man, because the language barrier was really difficult, and I didn't really realize it until I was pulling into the city, you know. And actually, there was an Algerian guy who spoke English that was like, man, go to Montmartre, go to Les Sacré-Cœur, go to Les Sacré-Cœur, that's where the tourists are, or whatever. And I kind of learned how to hustle tourists with gypsies, kind of, that were using me kind of as a decoy on the steps. And I thought, this is great, these gypsies love me. And I'm sitting there playing, and while I'm playing, I realized that I'm just a distraction while they're pickpocketing these tourists. It was a good trick. Of course, I didn't say anything. Also, I didn't stick with them too much. But like the automation thing, you know, Europe is way ahead of us on all of that, because in a lot of ways, America, when you try to like analyze America against Europe and these countries over there, like in some ways it's similar, but we're more similar to Latin or South America in a lot of ways, with just how big the country is, you know, and you know because the country's so big, we got the states that are divided up, all that type of shit. Those kind of technologies to like hit the people and become mainstream, it's a slower process here, right? And one of the things, you know, about the pandemic that is obvious to me now is, you know, a lot of people realize that they could speed that up, you know, and, you know, I mean, I think they'd been trying to eliminate, you know, the risks and what's the word? What are they like? You know, externalizing cost, right? Once, like, how do we get these machines in here and these people out? And we've probably jumped ahead in that process in America a decade or more in just a couple of years. And I just remember, this was probably 2010. You'd go into a grocery store in Paris, and there was only one person working there, and everything else was self-checkout. And that was years before I saw it here. And then you think about the way that that's hitting in every single industry in America.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's so easy for people to be completely disconnected from other people now. You know, you don't have to interact. You know, and that's part of it. And if they don't have to pay people, they can maximize their profits. And then it becomes a very impersonal experience.
Soylent Green is coming, baby.
It's coming.
You seen that movie?
Yeah.
It's a good movie, man.
That's a good movie. It's a scary fucking movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think all the dystopian movies about the future, they undersold it. It's going to get real weird real soon. And because automation is not just going to apply to self-checkout, it's going to apply to everything. All that truck driving shit, that's all gone. That's going to be gone.
Right.
It's all going to be self-driving trucks. And they're going to be more efficient, less accidents, safer.
Just remember those big business people. Just remember those people. I know a whole lot of people who have relied on undocumented workers in this state for decades, voting against the very thing that they were using themselves this entire time.
Yep.
How are you going to rely on undocumented workers?
Right.
Yourself.
Right.
You ain't paying taxes on it. You're not, you know, those people got no safety net or anything.
Right.
And then, you know, here comes that's where it's going to happen. And, you know, I'm not saying just as a negative thing. Like, I think you can already see in social media, I do think there's this exhaustion, even in the youth, with this monolith, you know, with this thing.
The phones.
Yeah, you know, and I've been saying that in the music business, like in country music, you know, like Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes.
Right.
You know, and so it's like, it's 25 now, but I was thinking of it last year in 2024, because like 1974 in music was this crazy year, you know, and like thinking about the Nashville system, the reason that Waylon Jennings is different than anybody else is because Waylon's the specific guy who breaks the stranglehold that the Nashville system has on its artists, that you can't use your band, you can't choose your studio, right? Like any of that. Like Waylon, you have to think how crazy that is. You couldn't use your band, and you couldn't even pick the studio. You couldn't produce. You didn't have creative control at all. Waylon's the guy that breaks that through that wall.
How did he do it?
I think a couple of ways. It's the yin and yang of Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings. They were both on RCA. Willie was, at first, it's like Stapleton. Stapleton made his career as a songwriter early on, and that's what catapulted really for everything, that he's got going on now. There's a really great foundation there of a guy that's spent his whole life writing songs. And that's what Willie did, So Willie actually had success pretty early when he got to Nashville with, songs like Nightlife and Crazy and all that kind of stuff, and Fair and Young and Patsy Cline, and these kinds of really big artists were cutting his songs pretty early on, right? But he was so weird to the establishment at the time. And so, kind of had this like philosophical thing to his writing that was going over the heads of the hillbilly deal. So he was really neglected as a, Willie Nelson records with him singing them. Waylon was more favored actually by like Chet Atkins and them. But like you'd be number one on the country charts in Nashville in the mid '60s and be in debt. Wow. That's what Waylon said. Waylon was like, man, I'd be number one all the time and I was fucking dead broke. He's like, man, they got you out there 7 nights a week and you're coming back and Lucky Moeller's telling them that you owe him fucking 10 grand. It was a crazy system. Willie ends up leaving RCA. They're over him. He leaves RCA because Jerry Wexler is coming down in A&R and Texans out of this progressive Central Texas scene of that era that was so unique. And it happened then and just totally unique. The whole scene, everything here, the movement, the hippies and the cowboys, the where everybody could like hear in the capital of Texas, it was weird, but they were in the same rooms. We're still doing that here, which is what I'm really proud of, and glad that this town never turned into Nashville or LA or any of those towns. The best thing that ever happened to us is that the business didn't grow up like that.
Right.
I really do believe that because it's allowed our unique culture to continue to grow, even if it's, like I said, and sometimes it's good to be neglected by that machine.
For sure.
But so Willie leaves because Jerry Wexler pulls him out of there because RCA doesn't give a fuck about him anyway, right? He goes to Atlantic, sells 400,000 records. The boys up in New York don't even realize there's a country division. After Willie sells 400,000 records, which is a lot, right? They close the division. And that's when Willie lands at Columbia and he's having success. Well, they were starting to think that Waylon was past his prime too. But then Willie's blowing up on the other label. And Willie and Waylon got the same manager at the time, Neil Reshin. And what's Reshin doing? Reshin's leveraging it all. And so Waylon was about to leave RCA. And they doubled down and matched kind of Willie's deal because they didn't want to lose Waylon. And Waylon was like, I'm only staying, if I got to be producing my own records. I got to be my band and I got to pick the place that I'm playing, and he manages to do that. So it's not just Waylon. I mean, it's Willie and Waylon together. That's why they're so tied together, as these two guys that their careers just kept, they just kept chasing each other kind of through the record books. You know what I mean? And, because you'd be in Nashville, it's still like this now, right? Like when I got signed to Nashville by 30 Tigers, it was purely because John Folk was my agent. And those guys, they'd tell you this themselves. They didn't understand what I was doing. They didn't get it. I was only put on the roster as a favor to my agent because they were having success with some other artists. Openly saying, I don't understand this. Right? Which at least they're being honest about, But then what they would do that was so weird is like they'd give you, like if a major label would give you, $500,000 on your deal, these guys would give you 50 grand, right? like a tenth of that, you know, kind of on the independent, alt country, Americana circuit. But what frustrated me about it, Joe, was that they're only giving you a tenth the money, but they're behaving like major labels with these like 2-year record cycles. That just kills an artist that's like that hasn't broken through. It just kills you. That's a 100% industry model because they can always get another horse. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They can always get another horse, and they can always, you know, they bet on 10 young guys, and one of those kind of amateur realists blows up, you know, they're good.
Right.
But you're never going to get a Waylon Jennings out of that model.
Right.
It's not going to, you know what I mean? It's not,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen, you know?
And so how did Waylon get it so that he could do whatever he wanted?
Because Willie left, right? And because Willie left, and all of a sudden Waylon was really going to leave. That's all of a sudden.
That was his leverage.
They gave him everything. They gave him everything, and everything was changing. Everything was changing in Nashville. Because we're talking about, when I say like 1974 here, you got to think about it. You know, this is America in Vietnam. You know, this is America coming out of the 60s. You know, it's coming. Everything was, you could. I feel like in a lot of ways what was happening is like the commercial culture was really starting to take off. You know what I mean? And then by the time we get to the 80s, you know, it's like this level of like pop culture and like American pop culture as a global export, you know, it's like, I guess maybe it's finally truly realized by the time Michael Jordan becomes the like most visible person on the planet, you know, kind of in the 80s and 90s. It's like Nashville was such an old system. It's kind of like in country music today, like one of the reasons everybody's sprinting into it, right, is because it's like one of the only places left where there's like loyalty, long-term loyalty in the fan base compared to like, you know, what happened with pop music in the last 20 years with pop and hip hop and all that. I mean, every one of those guys called me at one point and were like, I want to get into country music because you got loyal fans.
Wow.
All hip hop industry guys.
Wow.
All of them, every last one of them. And they've had success with a whole bunch of guys since then. I just didn't do it.
Well, country music has always been connected to authenticity.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why you keep the loyal fans.
That's right.
Because people know that it's real.
That's
Whether
right.
it's Coulter Wall or whoever it is, it's authentic. You hear it and you go, this is not mass produced. This is not a bunch of executives sitting around looking at a focus group trying to figure out what's going to hit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, you mentioned Coulter. I wanted to say this. This is something I wanted to bring up with the Willie and Waylon thing, and I've been meaning to tell Coulter this, so I'll just tell him on your show. So we were both on the 30 Tigers roster for years. I met Coulter out at Willie's Ranch, goddamn, 10 years ago, right? And he's one of my favorites. I've always loved his songwriting. I mean, everything he puts out is great. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I love him.
Special, you know, really special.
Jamie turned me on to him when I heard Kate McCannon the first time.
Jamie Johnson?
No, Jamie. Oh,
this Jamie.
Yeah. He
What's up,
texted me and he's like, you're going to love this guy.
Yeah.
He sent me that song. I was like, holy shit. When I found out he was 21 when he made that song, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That sounds like a 60-year-old chain smoker.
Man, it bowled us all over. And you know what's funny, man? He's just getting better.
Yeah.
You know, he is. And
he's incredible.
Here's something about that I told him I wanted to buy him a pickup truck as a gift for this. This is why. So he was on the roster. I was on the roster. And I started way down at the back of the line, right? And made a lot of records. And more the labels are calling. And each record I'm putting out is doing better than the previous one. And there's more money and promotion going into each album. But a lot of outside guys are calling, you know, all the coastal labels are calling. New York and LA are all over me. Coulter ends up pulling up stakes and going to RCA. And he didn't just go to RCA, he took everything with him. He took the whole catalog over there. And I wasn't really aware of that. I didn't know what was going on. And RCA, they had hollered at me like through one of their A&R guys or whatever, but their big guys were never really interested in me out there, right? So they weren't one of the ones that was like really hot on me. But David Macias at 30 Tigers, very similar to what I'm saying is Culture to me is kind of like Willie left RCA back in the day. And when he left, all of a sudden those guys, because he took everything with him, were about to lose me, and they fucking handed the keys over to me. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Coulter had left and just took everything. And so that ended up happening on a record cycle for me for an album called $10 Cowboy. And I was this close to going to, the New York boys. And Macias comes in last minute and beats them all on the royalty rate, on the money, on everything, right? So I guess what I'm saying is Culture's kind of my Willie Nelson. Appreciate you, bud. And you're doing good.
Yeah, he won't do podcasts. I tried to get him in.
Yeah, I know.
He sent me a bunch of records, sent me some cool shit, said sorry, but no.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's probably better.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to just be as authentic as possible. The dude spends time actually working on a ranch.
Well, that's what he loves to do.
Yeah.
You ever been up there to Saskatchewan?
No.
Man, it's in their blood.
Yeah.
That's what that land is. That's what they do up there.
Yeah.
I've been right through Saskatoon, even that big town there, and I guess he's not too far down south from there, but like, it's those are ranching folks.
Yeah. Well, it's in his music, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that guy screams authenticity.
Yep, he does. And he grew up on Waylon and all that stuff, and all the cowboy and all the, he knows that cowboy music probably better than anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that when you're talking about these hip hop artists and pop artists, that's what they feel, all artists, I mean, even someone who's a pop artist, what do they want to be? They want something that resonates with people. They want something that really connects with people. And if they think the vehicle to doing that is a hit pop song, they'll take that route.
That's right.
But then they'll hear something like Kate McCann and they're like, God damn.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I really want to do.
Yeah. And you can't duplicate that. The only way to do that is to live it.
Yeah, it's got to be real. It's got to be, there's something, just like I was talking about with comedy, like they have to know that you're really thinking that. It's something in music too. They have to know that this is, and they like when you write your own shit too. You know that it's coming from someone's mind and their soul. It's coming from their life experience. It's who they are as a human being. This is their art. This is a true expression of their being, and that's what makes people loyal. That's what connects with people.
Those pop artists just want to take a picture standing next to authenticity.
Yeah, they do. Well, they want to be it, but they don't know how to get there, and they don't know how to do it, and they've never lived it, and they've been paying attention to all the polls and the focus groups, and they've been listening to the executives, and they've been taking the advances and driving the Mercedes. They're doing all the shit that leads you down the wrong path. And then one day you realize, like, fuck, it's not what I want, It's interesting because it's like, there's always going to be these examples of something that pops through that's real, that people gravitate towards. And then there's always going to be these people trying to capitalize on it and make money off of it and trying to figure out how to recreate it in an inauthentic way. And it's not possible. And that's the one thing that might save us from this AI shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because AI is going to create a bunch of really catchy songs, but it's never going to create an Oliver Anthony song. It's never going to create Hard Times, It's never going to create some of your shit. It's not going to. It's got to come from a real human being. And there's a thing that people are always going to want. You're always going to want something that a real human being made, that there's something in it, That's why this building's filled with art. I love looking at something that somebody made. It came from their soul. It came from whoever they are as a human. They laid it down, whether it's music or whether it's art, comedy, whatever it is. It's like that's coming from a human being, and we're always going to want to be connected to that.
I was looking at you saying that with your Joe Rogan Experience sign, and you telling me in the hallway that it's named for Hendrix.
Yeah. I stole it from Jimmy.
I don't know.
When we first started doing it,
The greats never reveal their sources.
wow,
No.
I couldn't help it.
I'm just kidding.
I had to. Well, it's obvious. I had to give it
It
up.
wasn't obvious to me, man. That's what I'm saying. I'm kind of slow.
Well, I had to give it up. It's like, but you know,
Austin, Texas, robust. It says right there.
I used to listen to Jimmy all the time on the way to the Comedy Store. That was like Jimmy and Led Zeppelin. I'd listen to A Whole Lot of Love, and If 6 Was 9. I'd listen to that all the time on the way down Laurel Canyon. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo, doo-doo.
Can you imagine how that crazy that must have sounded?
Oh, man.
Coming through the radio or coming through like people's sound systems in America in the late 60s?
Well, my friend Phil Hartman, when he was a kid, he used to work at the Whiskey. He was like, like a grip, and it was his job. The speakers were precariously placed on the edge of the stage, and Jimmy performed there, and it was his job to stand there and make sure that Jimmy didn't kick over the speaker into the audience. So he stood right there while Hendrix played right above him. And the way he talked about it, man, it's like, it was just, to him, it was like this magical moment, because I think he was a teenager at the time. And it was,
Was he like in somebody else's band or something?
no, he was just working for the club. He was just a guy that was hired to work there. Just a kid.
Wow.
And he was basically literally just there to make sure the speaker doesn't fall into the crowd. And, Jimmy was playing right above him, just right there.
Wow.
And he said it was incredible. It was insane. He said it was just like this magical moment. Because Jimmy live, there's something about seeing someone live, like I was talking about when I saw Gary play Midnight Rider. There's something live. And I was with my oldest daughter, and we were at this downtown LA club, and it was like a Monday or Tuesday night. It was a weeknight, and it was a midnight show. It was like a real late night show, and it was sponsored by an alcohol company. I wish I could remember the company, but they put together this very small show, and it was just, it was a total impromptu session. And Suzanne, my friend Suzanne Santo, who's the lead singer of Honey Honey at the time, she's incredibly talented. She was singing it, and she didn't know the exact words, so she had to get the words off of her phone. So she's singing Midnight Rider off her phone, and Gary's in the background, and I recorded it on my phone, and I upload. See if you can find it, Jamie.
Well, I have your version, but I have somebody else's version.
Oh, shit. Man, that's what I'm talking about right there. Go ahead, Gary.
Jameson. It was Jameson. Come on.
I just love when he gets into it. Yeah. Blues will never go out of style.
Woo!
Come on, Gary.
Let's go.
That's a nice jacket, G.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Jamie, see if you can find Midnight Rider on my Instagram. I know it's on there. I want to play that part because it was fucking insane. It was just one of those magical moments where you see someone perform live. There's just something about you get a lot of it. There it is. This it.
Oh, yeah.
See how she's looking at her phone? She had to read the lyrics off her phone. It was.
Man, they're all doing that now. It's crazy.
She had to because she didn't know exactly the lyrics.
What if you
know?
didn't? What if you didn't have this fucking thing though?
Well,
Then you might. I might have to remember them
well, she would have had to get a piece of paper.
or make some shit up.
Yeah, make some shit up, but you know.
Man, listening to Gary do that, and you talking about how much you love Stevie Ray Vaughan, it just, it reminds me. It's like, this. To me, it's like, it's like country is everything and country's nothing, because if you're in Texas, all that shit over there on the other side of Mississippi, like, it goes away for us. There's a brashness, there's a boldness in any sound, whether it's coming out of honky tonk or coming out of a blues joint. In Texas, it's a totally different sound. It's like, Billy Gibbons talked about this a lot, like when those guys were trying to break through on the national scene, the idea of Texas is just a total stigma, right? It's all hillbillies, it's all provincial,
Yeah.
and all this shit, and so it's like you go to Nashville or whatever and it's all Appalachia. It's all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because and that's the thing, it's like, I don't give a fuck about some genres, because you get classified. But one thing you can't explain away is place, right? You can't explain away region, right? Like, you are from where you're from.
Yeah.
Gary Clark Jr. is from right here.
Yeah.
And he fucking sounds like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He sounds like it. And it's like, it's not that it's rock, blues, soul, country, whatever. It's Texas. And what happens with Texans of any background, right? They discount you. For sure. Look at us as provincial, right? People got some ideas about what Texas is who have never stepped foot in the state. That's not any different than, people who've never been to California claiming to be an expert on it, right? And so it's like, there's two roads for a Texas artist. You either let somebody in Nashville or New York or LA convince you to lose your accent, wash the Texas off, do it our way, or, which is the only way, is to take your brand of Texas to the world. Whatever it is, whether it's Gary or Selena or anybody.
Stevie Ray Vaughan,
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's with comedy too, man. Bill Hicks, who's one of the greatest of all time.
He's my favorite.
Right from here.
That's right. The scene
Right
was
from here.
hot, man. The scene was hot.
It was hot because of him. It was hot because of him and Kinnison. It was Texas. I remember.
Did you know Hicks?
No, met him once. Met him once real briefly. Didn't even get a chance to talk to him. but I saw him perform live a few times before he died.
You did see him live?
Yeah, saw Kinnison a few times live. I saw Kinnison live before he died too, but he had already passed his prime. Kinnison passed his prime real quick because it was he's a cautionary tale because of the partying. You know, like he was the fucking man.
Oh, y'all got a party scene. You comedians got a party scene.
Oh, well, that party scene in L.A. at the time was the cocaine party scene. It was a different party scene. You know, Mark Maron said that he hung out with Kinnison and they did so much coke that he had voices in his head for a fucking year afterwards. A year, like literally, like schizophrenic. You know, like hearing voices in his fucking head for a year before they stopped talking to him. Yeah, they were doing cocaine, man.
Yeah,
and they were doing
at the Viper Room
everywhere. They were doing it.
it.
Yeah, he was doing it everywhere.
Yeah.
But Kinnison became almost like a caricature of himself. It became sort of captured by this, the perception by this character that they had created. And Kinnison is what birthed Hicks. You know, Hicks was a great comic, but he was one of the outlaws. It was Kinnison and Hicks that sort of defined the Texas style. And when we were living in, at the time, I was living in New York, and there was really two places in the country. There was L.A., where you wanted to go to get on TV. Everybody wanted to go get a fucking sitcom. They all wanted to be Jerry Seinfeld. And New York, which was like the club comics. That was like the Dave Attell's and these guys that would like, you know, the guys who would do the clubs. And they were thought of as like the real pure comics,
right.
You know. And then there was this new scene out of Houston, this new scene out of the Laugh Stop in River Oaks. And I remember the first time I ever worked there, man, you could feel it in the building. You could feel that they had been there. You know, they were both gone. By the time I had worked there, they were both dead. But you could feel it in the building, man. You could feel it in the comics, the open mic scene. You could feel they were pure. You know, there was a Texas quality to the way they were doing comedy. It was a fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
That's what I like. Hicks. Hicks would fuck with both sides of the room.
Absolutely.
And then just fuck him up and cross him over and put him in his pocket.
And no one knew what he was. They didn't know what he was.
That's right.
The first time I ever saw him, he bombed. He bombed except for the comedians. We
I've
were
seen
dying
video
laughing.
Because you know there's quite a bit of video of him from these clubs here and in Houston when he was younger, because they were even in the in the 90s they were filming. Yeah. And I've seen some of those clips where he's like you're talking about, he just couldn't fucking. The whole room's afraid of him. Like no one's laughing. Everyone's afraid. And he's like super fucked up.
Well, he was the first comic really that had a message.
Right.
You know, he had like there was a social commentary to his, like a dark poetry to his comedy. And so many people tried to emulate it that at the green room, the Punchline in Atlanta, there was like people wrote a bunch of shit on the walls in the green room, but one of the big ones that said, "Quit trying to be Hicks."
Wow.
I remember seeing that going, yes, everybody did. We all did.
It's crazy. It's just
everybody wanted to be Hicks.
Dude, you'd come, so after Stevie Ray Vaughan passed, right, I remember, we were up in Dallas, Fort Worth, and we'd come down here in high school and shit, and go up and down 6th Street. I will never forget this. Every single guitar player in every little bar on 6th Street, every single one of them was playing like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah. Every single one of them. And there were 30 of them. Like there were 30 different ones that coming in and out of bars doing all the shit. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, there's always going to be someone like that like sets this standard.
Quit trying to be Hicks.
Yeah, quit trying to be Hicks. But it was like that was a...
My daddy died for that flag. Oh, really? How about mine at Kmart?
It's made in China.
But he could do it because he was a Texan. Yeah, the vernacular is real, and then he'd turn around and fuck up the other side.
Yeah, no, it was genius. Well, when I first saw him, he went on in Boston, and it was at Nick's Comedy Stop, and the guy who went on before him was he was a nice guy, but he was a hack. He was just like cops and donuts, normal shit, stupid jokes. But the stupid jokes were working. It was cartoon characters smoking pot. What would happen if Daffy Duck smoked a, joint with Donald Duck? It was dumb. But it
watered down Dangerfield.
But it was getting people to laugh. And then Hicks went on stage and immediately started bombing, Immediately he opened up with saying that he's tired of performing and tired of going up and telling people a bunch of shit you couldn't possibly think up on your own. But the comics were dying, and there was like 300 people in the room. By the time he was done performing, there was 50. There was 50, and there was maybe me and my friend Greg Fitzsimmons were in the back of the room just dying laughing, and maybe 10 comics. We had all come to see Hicks because we had heard about him. And then I saw him a month later at the Comedy Connection, and he fucking murdered. The Comedy Connection was this little tiny club. It was like 150 seats, real low ceilings.
Where?
Boston as well. This is when I was first starting, so this is like 1988. And it was before he'd really popped. I'd heard about him from the Rodney Dangerfield HBO special. You know, so the Rodney Dangerfield had these young comedian specials. Rodney was the best at like introducing the world to talented comedians. And he had these Rodney Dangerfield young comedian specials where he'd have on like Robert Schimmel and Lenny Clark and Andrew Dice Clay, and that's where Kinison emerged, and Hicks was one of them too.
Wow.
And I remember I'd seen Hicks on that, so I went to see him live. And like I said, the first time he bombed, the second time he fucking murdered. It was Tiffany meeting Jimi Hendrix at the mall. He was doing this bit about Jimi Hendrix, like Tiffany playing at the mall, and Jimi Hendrix shows up, and it was this fucking just genius bit. It was so funny, man.
Is that something that's out there? Can you see that?
I wonder, man. I wonder, because I don't think he ever put that on anything. It might be on an album somewhere. But it was back when there was all this like pop mall comedy or pop mall music, and he fucking hated it, you know. And it was, and he was just rallying.
There's
against,
a genre for you right there.
Yeah, rallying against corporatism.
It's gonna make a comeback. That little subgenre.
Yeah, I mean,
They'll do something new with it.
It kind of has. Austin
Right.
has a great comedy scene right now. It really does, and it's really just emerged from the pandemic.
Was that like the main thing that drew you here?
Well, we all moved here to start it. We didn't even move here to start it. We moved here to just keep doing what we were doing in L.A. But L.A. had shut down. And in 2020, we were all without a country. You know, we were living in L.A. and the Comedy Store was shut down for a fucking year and a half.
Y'all were wild, man. It was so shut down out there.
It was so shut down, and I knew I'm one of those dudes. It's just like I've never had faith in systems and government, and I'm like, these motherfuckers are going to keep us shut down. They're going to keep. And I came to Texas, and Ron White was already here. So Ron White, who's a very good friend of mine, and Gary, I knew Gary from L.A. He used to hang out at the Comedy Store too, and that's when I became friends with him. And he moved here, I think 2017 or 2018, and I talked to him on the phone. I'm like, why'd you go back to Austin? He's like, man, I can't fuck with those people in L.A. It's just like I'm tired of it, man. He goes, I love Texas. This is real, and it's like I need to go back home. And I was like, wow, that sounds right. That sounds right. And then when I talked to Ron, and Ron's the same way. Ron's a Texas boy too. And he was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'll stay here. It's great. He goes, it's great. It's the middle of the fucking country. I can fly anywhere. Fucking food's good. People are nice. And so I knew when I came here.
That's all you needed to know.
I was like, at the very least, Ron's here. And Ron's a good friend. And then when we came here, we could perform live. I first started doing shows outside. Me and Dave Chappelle started doing shows at Stubbs. And we were doing outside shows where we had to test the whole crowd. Everybody had to get tested. So everybody had to show up like 2 hours in advance. We tested everybody for COVID. They had to wear a mask outside. It was so fucking stupid. The whole thing was so ridiculous. But we were hanging out in the back, getting drunk, smoking weed. And it was like normal.
Yeah.
It was like normal times. And it was like this cultural thing. Like we were the only ones doing comedy. And, you know, everybody just started coming here, man. They all just started coming here. And then we started doing shows inside at the Vulcan Gas Company, which is a music club that's on 6th Street. So we started performing there. And, you know, Nick, the guy who's the owner, is just a wild dude. He's like, fuck it, let's just do shows. And we started doing shows in November of 2020. And it just felt like we were baby killers. We were killing grandma. You know, we were out there just spreading diseases. We were super spreaders.
If you spend enough time on 6th Street anyway, it'll make you immune.
Yeah, we had developed some strong antibodies. I never got sick off of 6th Street. I got sick in Florida.
That's what I mean, though. 6th Street will make you bulletproof to that shit. Well, except the bullets.
So, except the bullets. And there's a lot of that going on there, too. So we started doing shows there live, and then comics started moving. Man, they started moving in droves. They started all moving to Texas because they could do shows here. We were just lost.
I didn't know that.
Without doing shows, we just all felt lost. And then by the time 2021 rolled around, there was like 15, 16 world-class comics living in Austin.
Wow.
And then I was like, fuck it, I'm buying a club. And Ron talked me into it. He's like, you got to get a fucking club. We got to do this. Because, he knew I got a bunch of money from the Spotify deal. So I was like, all right, let's fucking do it. And so then in 2022 or 3, I guess, we opened up. And it's just been gangbusters ever since. And now it's like, this is the hub of comedy in the country, which makes it the hub of comedy in the known universe. It's all here in Texas. It's all at that club.
I like that. Well, that's really
great.
cool, man. Props to you for pulling that off.
Well, I mean, I think I pulled it off, but I think
But
everybody pulled it off.
People are proud of the comedy, history in this town.
Yes. And it's a great place, and it's all walks of life, man. Everybody likes to use that term inclusive and diversity. Well, our scene is diverse and inclusive, but everybody's great. It's only diverse because they just happen to be. Everybody's fucking diverse. We're all, you get artists. They're all different, weird people, and we didn't seek that out. It was just what happened. It was just who's good. Who's good and who's really all about this?
Right.
Who really wants to live this life? Who really wants to just do comedy? And we set it up where we have 2 nights of open mic nights, and we've got Kill Tony on Monday nights, so all the amateurs get a chance to be seen in front of the whole world, and the biggest live comedy show in the world on YouTube. And it just became this hub, man. And now it's just fucking every night. It's sold out, and it's crazy. And it's a vibrant, wild scene. And now on 6th Street, there's 5 full-time clubs within 2 blocks of my club.
Comedy clubs?
Comedy clubs.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. The scene is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best scene in the country. It's like there's never been a scene like this before that just emerged. And we had to hit every green light. Like, the Comedy Store had to be closed down. So I hired everybody that was working at the Comedy Store. Before we even had a club, I said, I'm going to pay you full time. You get benefits. You get all insurance, all that shit. Just come, move to Austin. We'll call on you in like a year. It's going to take like a year to build this place. But meanwhile, you'll get paid. You'll be able to just like live here, set your roots, get established. It's a beautiful place to live. Everybody fucking loved it. And then when we opened, we hit the ground running. We opened up one night. We did a couple of test shows. Like, let's try the venues, make sure everything works good. And then we was like, fuck it, let's stay open. And we just stayed open. And before you know it was 7 nights a week. And then it's been almost 3 years now.
You gonna keep it rolling?
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah. We're talking about doing it in other places now.
That's cool.
We just don't want to water it down.
Yeah.
We've talked about doing it in some other city and trying to figure out what the next one would be. But it would have to be a city that has a real group of talent. You have to have talent. Like, that's every comedy community. The only way it works is you have to have a lot of great comics that live in that town. It's the only way it works. And then we feed off of each other. That's the only way. There's no lone wolves in comedy. Comedy it's only iron sharpens iron. There's no like the best comic in the world living in Pittsburgh. It doesn't exist. Like, they all live where they're in, not in competition, but in cooperation with each other. Like, we're all inspired by each other. You have to have that. If you don't, and so we had to have like every green light. The Comedy Store had to be shut down for a solid year and a half. All those people had to be unemployed. I had to have all this money from Spotify. I had to be in a place like Texas that allows you to open up and have a show indoors when everything in California was closed. They wouldn't even let you do outdoor shows. We weren't even allowed to do shows. We tried to do shows in the parking lot at the Comedy Store, and they wouldn't allow us. It was crazy.
No, I remember how shut down it was.
70% of all the restaurants went under. I mean, it was fucking madness.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, a lot has changed.
Yeah.
Really fast.
Yeah, real fast. Real fast.
Really fast.
So we had to hit every green light, and we had to have all these people that were willing to take a chance. All the Tom Seguras and Tim Dillons and Tony Hinchcliffes and Duncan Trussell's, all these great comics that just was like, fuck it, we'll move there. Brian Simpson and Tony Hinchcliffe and so all these guys just said, fuck it, let's take a chance. Like, I don't want to live like this. I want to live where I can't do comedy. It's like we were just like junkies with no fix,
Yeah. I was still working the Red Dirt circuit when the pandemic hit. So to be honest with you, those boys was like, it never closed.
Wow.
It didn't. Not all those old dance halls and beer joints and
Thank God.
None of those places closed. I mean,
Thank fucking God.
Well,
Thank God they were right.
it kept us working, man. You
Yeah.
know, is the thing. And I was just working so hard, I never really thought about anything else. But something about the California shutdown that's funny when we talk, not funny, but like the pandemic hit and I was unknown. But I had just finished that record, Welcome to Hard Times, and it didn't have anything to do with anything. I had the 2 surgeries. I'd like gone through a relationship that crashed and burned in a tailspin. You know, I'd gotten rid of a management relationship that was going nowhere, and I wrote Welcome to Hard Times just kind of out of my own personal kind of dark feelings about where I was going through and just the whole like rigged casino. You know, America's a casino, you know, and I have thought that since I was a kid because I kind of lived in them. You know, you're talking about being pool halls. And then I cut the record in Georgia, South Georgia. It was with Mark Neal. Right, like the whole thing, I cut it. Like I wrote the record in November, cut it in December, got the masters back, and like a week or 2 later, I remember me and Taylor Grace, my now wife, we were dating, and we were at a diner in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, and my manager at the time called me and said that South by Southwest was canceled. And that, for us here at that time, that's when we knew the shit was real. Nothing could stop that machine that was South by Southwest at the time. And strangely for me, I've known a lot of people that have passed away or anything, so I'm not saying that all the stuff that happened is a good thing at all. But for me, my career trajectory totally changed early on in the pandemic because no one was putting out records. No one had any interest in putting out records. And for that reason, David Macias, because I was riding his ass, actually thanks to John Folk at the time, was like, don't let him shelve your record. Put that record out right now. You know, we're talking about, you know, July of 2020.
Wow.
You know, and I demanded more money. No one had ever put $1 into marketing my records. I'm talking about nothing. Before the shit hit the fan, these guys were talking about spending like 10, 15 grand total marketing Welcome to Hard Times.
Wow.
Total. I mean, shit, I spent twice that or more making it. And that's still a cheap record. But I mean, I remember a publicist told me once, like, you should spend at least double the money marketing your record that it costs you to make it and at least match it, you know. And here I was, like, that's what I mean. I was like caught on this like broke dick Americana scene, you know, on these 2-year record cycles, you know, with no money, you know. I was in a broke dick deal, just like Waylon was talking about, you know. I'm not bagging on Americana or anything, you know. I mean, I'm glad I showed up on the map somewhere, but we went ahead and put it out in July of 2020. And I'd been wanting to buy billboards, and it just so happened, especially in California, but even in New York, I mean, everything was shut down. I mean, totally shut down. So I remember we bought a billboard in Silver Lake and in Times Square, right? Traditional static billboards for like 80% off because nobody was buying shit. Not a single other billboard over the course of like 9 months or a year in those neighborhoods changed. Wow. Right? And I bought all those billboards, I bought like 1 month billboards, and some of those motherfuckers stayed up over 6 months.
Wow.
You know what I mean? At like 75% off, you know? And, you know, sometimes you write a song that get lucky. I was writing about personal experience, and it spoke for me. It wasn't a big record, but it changed my trajectory because Welcome to Hard Times, the song, really spoke to what was happening in America.
Yeah.
And that's when my train really started rolling. That's when it really started rolling. You know what I mean? It's like, and then I did all those records and Welcome to Hard Times and Music City USA coming like kind of right for the Nashville machine, and then The Man from Waco that I made down in Lockhart with Bruce Robinson, which was like the first time really that I'd made a studio record with my guys, you know, with more money and Bruce Robinson, a songwriting friend that was not stopping me from being me, you know, and then that one was my first one to hit the Billboard 200. And then $10 Cowboy really took off another big step from there. And then I got hooked back up with Shooter. I used to open up for Shooter because Shooter was getting booked by John Folk too, right? And the two guys that took a liking to me early on, like pretty much nobody else did, was Evan Felker and the Turnpike Troubadours and Shooter Jennings. You know, Shooter would take me out and like, he didn't have to be cool to me. I mean, he's fucking Waylon's son, but he was always so cool.
He's just cool.
And so thoughtful, you know?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And he would give me little things to live by. Like when he saw how hard I was working out there, he's like, it says you can't park behind the Nashville Palace, but between me and you fucking camp there and nobody's going to say shit. And then I lived in that fucking parking lot. That's the kind of shit you get by on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've got this movie that I funded, you know how slow the movie business is, that I was going to be called $10 Cowboy, and it's this thing I put together. I finished my touring season at the rodeo finals in Vegas, and then I get back to Texas, and all the pressure of the business is mounting on me, and I'm just trying to get away from my manager and the machine and my phone and all that shit, and I decided to leave the phone at the house, and I had heard from a journalist about this secret shrine in a liquor store dedicated to Waylon Jennings in his hometown of Littlefield, Texas, there on 84. I'd known about it, but in the movie, I'm playing like I've never heard of it, and I'm going on this pilgrimage, you know, to find out if this little museum really exists, which it does. It's run by his youngest brother, James D., Waylon's youngest brother.
Oh, wow.
And so to get the movie going, I needed to get on the phone with Shooter, you know, to get hooked up with James D. and them, and we got the idea to get his mama, Jessie Coulter, involved. And all that, and I wanted to use some of Waylon's music for the film, and I was scared to death to ask for it, but Shooter had always been good to me, and so we ended up having the conversation. We caught up on a lot of stuff because I'd been hearing that he was producing, right? But I couldn't make heads or tails of it where he was going with it, and truthfully, I was like avoiding producers altogether because a lot of these guys, it's like, you know, they're such big names, it overshadows the artist. You know what I mean? And then they have the deal. They have the artist deal.
Right.
Then the artist just kind of, in a lot of ways, gets limited to like acting talent, you know, showing up at the fucking, you know, movie lot or whatever.
Yeah.
But I kept hearing records that he was making by people I knew, like Jamie Wyatt. And I said, man, it's the best thing she's ever done. Shooter Jennings. Vincent Neil Emerson, this is the best thing he's ever done. Shooter Jennings. Like over and over. And I had been noticing that. And so we're on the phone, and he's all about the movie. Yeah, I'm going to help you license the songs. We'd love that. You know, my mama loves your music and all that. You know, she decided she's in the movie. He just was helpful with everything. And I had almost made a record at Sunset Sound there in old downtown Hollywood, the old Sunset Sound studio. I'd wanted to go in there because Mark Neal had told me about it, and I was tired of making records in Georgia and didn't want to go over to the wrong side of Mississippi. I wanted to make a record in California, and I told Shooter in passing on the phone that it had fallen through, and, you know, did he know Sunset Sound? And he was like, man, Charlie's crazy. I'm signing the lease on Studio 3, the Prince studio, tomorrow.
Wow.
Just in passing, you know? And I'm like, man, well, then let's make a record. And we're right in the middle of a trilogy now. I did Lonesome Drifter with him. Man, and then the next one that's coming out is $1 a Day on 8/8, which I think is a lucky number. And then I've got a third one coming after that we're calling the Sagebrush Trilogy. And Shooter is the first guy I've ever been in a studio with where I truly don't feel judged. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And now and because I've got all these, it's just a perfect timing. It's like, wow, that like have been out on the road with him 10 plus years ago. And then, you know, like think about what he's been through in the business, right? I mean, he started cutting records 20 years ago. I mean, he's a crucified son automatically.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Walking in that
shadow.
Yeah. Man, he said a crazy line to me on the other day. He said, in regards to some other situation he was in, he was like, he said, I went from one shadow to another. Just a beautiful line. I think he was talking about like an old relationship he was in or something, but But like he's overcome that because you know what I mean? Like he's stepped into, like if you listen to his records, you know, when he's starting out and you compare it to the field, you know, in country music in Nashville at the time, like he's totally swimming upstream. He's totally going against the grain. Nobody's sounding like that. They're not sounding traditional and pushing the boundaries. Like he just was, you know, and I can tell you constitutionally, he's just like his daddy. I mean, he drink me and smoke me under the table. I'm like, you are Waylon's son. And for some reason, you like get smarter the more weed you smoke. And my brain is just like pulverizing, you know. But I'm really proud of and excited about everything that I'm doing with him because I've just taken me so long to get where I'm at. And here I've got a partner, you know, in making records that isn't judging me, but also is pushing me to take it higher, you know, because I'm trying to figure out how to transcend it too. You know, there's a lot of, you know, I've always been a pretty polarizing figure for some reason with audiences. It's a love-hate thing. And I've done a lot of styles, you know, and they've called me a stylistic chameleon. Here in Austin, even the first time they put me on the Chronicle, you know, they called me a stylistic chameleon. And I had a hard time with that, you know, because I wasn't taking it as a compliment.
Right.
Right?
It's not a compliment.
No.
Yeah.
But it's that whole thing where it's like, okay, I can play the blues, I can play country music, I can play folk music, learn how to play all that shit on the street, matter of fact, right? It's surprising to me that people would question my authenticity and point to me playing in subway cars as this aha moment that I'm not who I said I was. I'm like,
isn't that hilarious?
why don't you go try to play in those New York City train cars?
Well, that's people that are just talking.
Brother, I'd rather get on a fucking bull. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever think, man, like it's synchronicity, that like fate is a real thing? Because just think about how all that lined up. I feel like sometimes, I mean, it's a very egocentric thing to think. You know, the things are meant to be. Like there's a plan for you. It's silly, but it also isn't. You know, fate seems to somehow or another be a real thing. And sometimes the way things synchronize and the way things line up, you're like, man, this seems like it's meant to be. I think there's certain things that they just seem like they're meant to be. And I feel like if you're on the right frequency and you're following the right path, those doors open and these things do happen. And they happen when they're supposed to happen. They happen at the right time for the right reasons. You know? And
I believe completely in fate.
Yeah.
I don't really believe in faith. I think there's a surrender and a helplessness in a lot of ways to a lot of people's idea of faith, right? When people are like, love your struggle, I never liked that saying. It's like, no, love the strength that your creator gave you to overcome the struggle. Don't love the struggle. Nobody fucking loves the struggle, right?
Right.
It's the strength. And
especially real struggle.
Yeah.
Like real struggle is not knowing if it's going to work out. You're not going to love that.
That's what I mean. I never understood that. I mean, I guess I get it, but
you get it
fate,
after it's successful.
Fate is a thing that's like, that's destiny.
Yeah.
You know? Like Waylon, like Shooter and like the Waylon Jennings thing for me, you know, is like, you know, I was out there, you know, I did I debuted at the Houston Rodeo back in the spring. And for me, that was like my career goal, you know, because of Selena and George Strait and everybody. Hell, Elvis played there twice. I mean, it doesn't matter what your background is as a Texan, any background. The Houston Rodeo, that's the top. Culturally, I think, as like a stage for an artist to perform, I think it's the Houston Rodeo, you know, and it was the Astrodome, and now it's the NRG Stadium. And
I would have never known that.
It's the truth. And it crosses, you know, everything, economic, racial, everything. It's the Houston Rodeo, you know,
wow.
And it's the biggest rodeo on earth, you know, which is why you got everybody from, like I said, you know, Waylon, Jennings, Merle, George Strait. Nowadays you got Post Malone and Beyonce both playing it.
Wow.
I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. Like that's the platform. Anyway, I played there, and we're putting a live record out on it, and me and Shooter were mixing it there at Sunset Sound. And then I stayed the extra night because he had the party at the Viper Room for the announcement of these 3 unreleased Waylon Jennings records. And they're legit unreleased. It's not AI bullshit. It's not remixes. This is truly, legitimately unreleased music by arguably, the king, certainly the king of all the outlaws.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, when it comes to like Nashville country music, whatever you want to call it, man, like a buddy of mine, John Spong, a journalist here in town, a Texan, we were at the Sagebrush doing an interview a couple years back, and he was saying that like if Willie Nelson to country music is like Che Guevara, right? Waylon Jennings was the long-haired Prince of Darkness, right? And like he's the guy that like he's from West Texas, right? The guy learned he learned how to play bass on stage. He learned how to play bass on fucking stage, backing up Buddy Holly, right? Who at the time was bigger than Elvis, man. I mean, that style of rock and roll, right? It's coming from everywhere. I mean, nobody's just nowadays they're kind of strangely making music in a vacuum in a bedroom, but like in some ways, right? But these guys, it's like whether it's Robert Johnson or B.B. King in the Delta or whatever, or Buddy Holly out in West Texas, you're influenced by the radio and all that. But there's something to be said for like how hard that earth is out there in West Texas. And like people talk a lot of shit about Lubbock, right? It smells like shit because it's cows everywhere. It's so fucking flat, the thing you can stand on a fucking tin can and like, see 100 miles or whatever they say out there, right? But like the best people to play a show for, probably anywhere in America in many ways, in my opinion, is like a show in Lubbock. Like there's something about the people in that town where it's like, it's just the best place to play. And then like Willie Nelson is now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he deserves it. Dolly Parton now too. But Waylon Jennings was always rock and roll. Like he was never traditional country. There's nothing about him, if you know what you're listening to, even on his very first record, like country folk country, right? There's nothing straight ahead. Listen to anything coming out of Nashville in like 1965, anything next to Waylon Jennings. He's the long-haired Prince of Darkness. He is going to be their undoing of because what they did is they built a wall around Nashville because the coast had all the money and all the zeitgeist power. And in response, Nashville walled themselves off, right? You know what I mean? That's really what they did. And then Waylon busted through, and I know I'm going back on that a lot, but like my path that led to making records with Shooter was that when I started figuring out like the map is when I like cracked the code and realized what Waylon was doing musically. Like I finally fell in love with him musically, and it was on this specific record from 1968 called Hanging On, right? And like every swinging dick in this business that I ever knew coming up in Texas, if it had anything to do with Texas songwriters or country, every one of them wanted to be Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Townes Van Zandt, and Billy Joe Shaver. Every single one. And I naturally stepped wide of that because everybody I knew was trying to do it. And like imitating an artist, like for the advanced part of their movement in and of itself, that's worthless. It's not that it's worthless, it's that you will never touch it if you don't go walk your own path.
Right.
So a lot of guys I knew when I started playing all the shows with Willie called me up and got me on with his agent and shit and put me on like 50 shows. And a lot of guys I knew were like looking at me like, man, why do you get to play with Willie? And at first I didn't know, right? Because I was realizing guys that I knew, like they knew Willie Nelson's shit in and out. We're literally trying to sing like him. So they're like, fuck you, I should have that spot. And like, I'm nobody at the end of the day, right? I'm the best at being me.
Right.
When sometimes, right? But like how I think I've landed with Shooter and his family and playing all those shows with Willie and getting married on his ranch and all that stuff is not because I worship Willie Nelson, but because I think Willie looked at me and was like, I like what you're doing. I like how you got where you're at. You can play with me, you know? And you don't ask to take your picture with Willie. He fucking lets you know when you're going to take your picture with him. You know what I mean? You're going to let you know. It's time to get your picture taken with Willie. That's how they did it.
Wow.
And we're standing, there's like 100 nitrous cans behind us and shit. It was like the greatest photo of my life. You know?
Yeah, it's a natural inclination that people have when they want to be authentic, to imitate authenticity. And that's the thing, is you got to find your own path.
You have to put yourself out there, you know? Like when I was playing on the street, people knew I was different. And artists, the hipsters, like in the Brooklyn scene and in Bushwick and Williamsburg and all over the boroughs and shit, like to be on the street playing, like there's credibility to that, right? And like I didn't want to play in subway cars. Actually, what it was is young rapper Jadon Woodard is his name, and he kept seeing me at the Metropolitan Avenue stop, playing there at the platform, you know, for the cars coming by on the L train or whatever. G train down there on Metropolitan. G train sucks to ride on. It's great for subway performers because it's the slowest train in the world, right? So you get huge audience between every fucking, you know, train. So it's a gold mine for a street performer and a terrible drag for the, you know, New Yorkers waiting on it, right? Anyways, this kid kept trying to get me. He would always show up with like a different guitar player and shit with like an amp on his shoulder, which I copied. I got an amp, ran off a 9-volt battery. You get about 7-8 hours of it in this Telecaster, and I learned it from this guy Ghost who was already doing it, that was playing with Jadon, who was like kind of part of Citizen Coke, Clarence Greenwood's street team. And he kept trying to get me to go on the subway cars. And I was like, man, this kid's crazy. Like, and he's rapping and shit, and man, the subway cars, like, I'm all right, you know? And eventually he like kind of cornered me. Actually, what it was, I kept dodging him. And then I was finished one day and I get in the car, it's on the L train. And I'm riding in the car and I'm just sitting there looking down the train. And all of a sudden I see that skinny motherfucker in a white tee walking toward me. And he's moving, but he can't really, you know how the trains can be loud. And I'm looking at him, I'm trying to put it together. And when he gets closer, I realize he's rapping. And he's got that guitar player with him with the amp behind him. It's playing this like really badass bluesy hip hop beat. And he's freestyling like, you know, the hat you're wearing, he's rhyming to it. The next stop, he's putting it in the verse and shit. And he's got all these mixtapes in his hand, and he's handing them out and shit, and he sees me, and he hands me one. And that's how he got me, because I saw, like, it working. And he was making money and, like, dropping product, you know? I thought, holy shit, right? Because so, like, comedy scene, music scene, whatever. Say you got a place on 6th Street, holds, right, 100 people. And you play there, you get a residency, you play there 30 nights a month, right? And you get 100 different people show up there every night. What is that, 3,000 people? It's like, dude, you could hit 3,000 people in like half a day on the train cars once we started working it. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, it was his, and he was a spoken word poet. This kid started fucking rapping on trains at like 15.
Wow.
In like Philly, which is, fuck, man, Philly's tough. I don't have to tell you, Philly's tough. Like train cars in Philly, that's mind blowing, you know? And then he comes to New York with that and like takes that spoken word improvisational thing. And like all the best rappers I saw in that town, they were all like spoken word poets because, you know, they just were smart and quick, you know? And like we got together and like mashed it up. And again, like I went from making where I would make $30, you know, all of a sudden, like, we would make $300 and split it, you know, 50-50. Wow. And we turned that into a whole, like, a really fine, pretty well-oiled machine where there started being 5 or 6 of us, and we were bringing guys up and down from New Orleans and shit. So that's where you see the trumpet players, different spoken word rappers. We were squatting in warehouses, you know, owned by Hasids that were, like, renting out space that was supposed to be for rehearsal, but really everybody was living there and selling drugs and shit, and wilding out. And you know, I cranked that up. We cranked that up and did get discovered by like the heart of the pop machine right there on the R train.
Wow.
And like just what you would think. You can see video of this stuff, but it's like they saw that we were believable. Yep. And we're just trying to figure out, and that's one of the spoken word dudes right there was Eric. He was from Jacksonville, Florida. And that hippie right there, that was my friend of mine, his younger brother from high school down here in Texas.
There's something about street performing that is, there's no net. You're performing for people that are involuntary.
Oh man, they don't want you in there, and you're
Right.
breaking like 10 laws. You're breaking 10 laws, and they don't want you in there.
Right, but if you're good, it means a lot. You ever see the video of Biggie when he's performing? He's 17 on a street corner in Brooklyn.
Oh yeah,
Oh my God!
you pull that one up. Can we see it just for fun?
That up. That fucking video is like you watch him. This kid with this.
Talk about it. Even though I
Power.
know he's the king, but he's still underrated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
he's
yeah.
crazy underrated for that. How smart he was.
Oh, he was so good. He was so good.
Yeah,
He was so
standing
good
on-
young.
standing on a street
Yeah, here it
corner.
is.
Yeah, that's the one.
Let me hear this.
Man. The blues never goes out of style.
Never.
What do you say? What do you say? Like ice cream, I'll scoop you.
Yeah.
It's so clever and like.
Oh, he was so clever. It
Yeah.
was so clever. There was comedy in his lyrics. You know, it was
I met
power.
I met his aunt on the train.
Really?
Yeah, we did, and like Jadon knew who she was because he was running the trains before I was, and like he knew all those people because he'd been working it so hard, and it was crazy. Some of the people that we who you come in contact with on those subway cars. You know what I mean? It's like I saw Jake Gyllenhaal on the train one day, and then some other day on the 6 train, it'd be like the NBA commissioner and shit gave us a $100 bill.
Wow.
You know, it's like to me that's like that's all it is. You know, it's like whatever the circuit is, it's like putting yourself out there. And when you go out in public, man, when you go out in public and you put yourself out there and you really do that, that's a transformation. That's a metamorphosis. You know, for anybody.
For anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just undeniable. It's the most authentic form of performance ever. You know, that's not your audience. They don't know you. You have to earn it. You have to break through.
Yep.
You have to break through it. It has to hit.
Yep.
It has to be real.
That's all I've been doing is swinging on them the whole time, Joe.
Yeah, man. Well, you're killing it.
They used to sometimes they call me the Muhammad Ali of country music. That's too good a compliment, but I like it.
But that's the only way you make Charley Crockett. You got. I mean, your story is important for people to hear because it's the only way you make someone like you. You know, you don't make someone like you in a mall. You don't make someone like you with a bunch of executives making these decisions based on what they think is going to be popular.
Man, it was crazy. They were doing that shit you'd think they would do. So this woman, Nell Mulderry, saw us in the R Train, and she was in the Sony system and managing artists and like kind of the star maker, that pop machine of like 2010, 2011. So they bring us up into the offices in Koreatown, right? And like on the edge of Hell's Kitchen there. And her office was off the side of this Sony Legacy like kind of catalog room. Because at the time she was married to Rob Santos, one of the guys at Sony Legacy. And she had this little office off the side of the like library thing, whatever. And she brings us in there, and they're putting us in front of these like computer screens and showing us like gym class heroes and the Gorillas and Odd Future and Janelle Monáe and like all doing these focus group training things, you know, and where they're going to plug you in to the thing. And it was like, what was so difficult about it for me, they didn't do anything wrong. You know, we were young, desperate men playing in public transit, you know, be careful what you ask for, you know? And I was mad for a long time, but I've been eating off that plate forever because I realized, man, I was like, man, if you don't know what you want, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what you're selling, they're going to sell it for you.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It doesn't matter who it is.
Yes. It's not their fault. That's what they do.
No, that was the best thing that could have happened to me, is because like I believed that there was some deal. I wasn't on the trains for it, but I knew we'd find it. I really did. It was fate. It was fate. And like, you know, it's that whole thing. Like I got there, it fell apart quick. It wrecked me, man. And that's when I got off the street and I went back to California, started working on the ganja farms because I realized, you know, like Big L said or whatever, you know, I was going to get street struck. You know, you can't stay out there forever. You really can't.
Right.
And that's when I looked at it and it's like, man, okay, what am I willing to sell? You know, like what is Charley Crockett willing to sell? And I think that that's stronger than playing it cool, right? And letting somebody else figure it out for you. You know, that's where it gets dangerous. You know, and so it's like, I know a lot of these guys in the business, they're like, oh man, you know, I don't pay attention to the business shit and all that type of stuff. Man, you're crazy for that. Because I don't care if it was Willie Nelson or James Brown. They were poorer than you. They both picked cotton and they learned the business because they had to. So someone gave me that bullshit.
We need to understand the business if you're in the business. If you don't understand it, you'll be taken over by it.
There's no doubt, even if they got you on top.
Yeah, and then you have to have autonomy. You have to have this personal sense of self or you could avoid the influence. You have to be able to just stick to your guns. And that's the hard part, right? Because then they dangle that carrot in front of you.
Man.
That carrot is juicy, especially if you've been out in the street.
It's right there.
Oh, it's right there. It's right there. It's so juicy. And a lot of people bite it. A lot of people bite it, and then they don't want it anymore, and then they don't know how to be authentic.
Were you dealing with the on that circuit? Because I mean, I know you're a comedian, and I know you also like got into the like dealing with the network TV shows and all that kind of stuff. Like, did anybody ever fucking get you pretty good?
Well, I got lucky in that I got on television so early, and I didn't want to be on television. It wasn't something that I wanted.
Yeah.
But they offered me so much money to be on TV. I was like, what? Okay. But I kept growing and doing my comedy at the Comedy Store. And that was the most important thing, that I just kept doing comedy. And then the money was just like, fuck you money. So it's like, because I had the fuck you money, I could kind of be myself.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a lot of temptation. Like, I remember the producers of Fear Factor, like, what are you doing? Like, because some of my comedy was just out there. Like, you know, this gets you in trouble. This is not network television comedy. I was like, well, then I won't do network television anymore. Like, once I had a certain amount in the bank, I was like, all right, this is more money than I ever thought I'd ever have in my whole fucking life. And I never thought I'd ever be wealthy. And then all of a sudden I have money. And so if you have fuck you money and you don't say fuck you, what's the point? No one's going to say fuck you then. If you're going to be a prisoner to that money, like everybody says, man, if I had all that money.
Just afraid to be you.
Afraid to be yourself. Like that's the only time you can really do it is when you have, you know, it's like the universe gives you this gift. And what is the gift is the gift of freedom. And you have to choose to either accept it and take it and run with it or be captured by it and then want more and more and more forever. And there's no end. You know, we were talking about my friend Brian has this friend who's worth $3 billion and he feels poor because his friend is worth 80. You know how crazy that is? Think how crazy that is. Like, this guy's just constantly chasing to keep up with his friend who's worth 80 billion.
Man, that's how it works.
Because he's got 3. Yep, that's how it works. You could get trapped. And then, you know.
Still keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, you got a hit show. You want a hit movie. You got a hit movie. I want to have a Grammy. I want to start singing. Oh, you start getting crazy.
Yeah. It's true.
You chase that demon of success that just lures you deeper and deeper into hell. And the next thing you know, you don't even know who you are. No one knows who you are. And if you don't know who you are, they'll decide. They'll decide who you are. They'll sell you. They'll sell you as a thing, You know what's crazy about the music business? The manager is, in many cases, the most powerful and the least regulated. I think that's what's wild about the music business. There's basically no regulation. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I think that's what makes people say it's, the shadiest business. I don't think it's the shadiest business, but a guy told me that in New York, actually, when I got caught up in the Sony thing with the train robbers deal y'all were showing on the screen, a lot of people were trying to sign us. Actually, the guys at A&R'd Wu-Tang, like DJ Scott Free and Matty C, they were trying to get us into a deal. Citizen Cope had a deal on the table and all that shit. And it was like, he was the one that told me that. He was like, man, fuck what you heard. This is the shadiest business. Now, I had come from a background of dealing with some pretty crazy shit in Texas, and with everything. But even in that business, like people that are, if you're trying to play the stock market or whatever, Wall Street, it's a corrupt business and it is really fucked up, but it's highly regulated. Compared to the music business. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And you're dealing in, like, that's the stock exchange there. It's like they're like dealing in cultural power. Right. Cultural wars, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And there's just very, very little regulation. And a lot of power. Man, it's so much power and influence, and the people that make the most money, the people that don't even create the art. Because like you talking about, like let's say you got old boy's got his buddy that's worth $80 billion or whatever, still doesn't make you a star. Right. Right. It's still not fame, actually. That's what's crazy. I have a friend who's a billionaire who desperately wants to be famous. I think it seems like a lot of them want to be. They do, because that's the thing they don't have. Right. They have everything. You can't exactly buy that. They can't. Well, you kind of can. Kind of, but then it turns on you. Yeah, it turns on you. Yeah, to be the rich guy, like then you're. Watching those, I see some of that stuff playing out. I'm like, man, I don't want nothing to do with that. Nothing. Look what they did to Elon. Yeah, it's crazy. You don't want that. Yeah, it's a harsh world because there's no sympathy for you. You're the wealthy oligarch. Oh, and you want everybody looking at you, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, they're looking at you. Yeah, Woo, I just got nervous. They got you under that eye of Sauron. They're trying to find all your flaws, and everybody's got them. That's why I got this little bird right here. It tells me that? It tells me all the secrets. What is that bird? I didn't know what this was when I bought it. Right, this is Horus. Right. Oh wow. And I found it in this place, this found items place about 10 years ago, and I just liked it. Actually, I thought it was native. Right? I didn't realize it was like Egyptian. And I've always liked this one because I felt like it was a little bit of both. And I didn't know anything about it at first. But the reason I never take it off anymore is like when I started reading about like what it meant to the Egyptians was that it meant like safe passage as you journey through this world and get ready to go on to the next one. You know what I mean? And protect you against evil. Protect you and for health and happiness. They called it initiation. So it makes a lot of people tie it to stupid shit like Illuminati and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's just a Thunderbird. Well, the eye of Horus is essentially the pineal gland, where the seat of the soul, where the brain produces dimethyltryptamine. That's the eye of Horus. Have you ever seen the image of the eye of Horus next to the pineal gland? I'm not sure. Maybe I have, but I'm ignorant. I didn't. The ancient Egyptian. What's pineal gland? The pineal gland is it's a gland that's in the center of your brain. It's essentially the third eye. In reptiles, it actually has a retina and a lens. Wow. Or a cornea and a lens, and it's where now they believe that DMT is actually produced by the entire brain. It's also produced by the liver and the lungs, but it's like the most spiritual of all the psychedelics. And they believe that the Egyptians had some sort of, there's so little understood about truly ancient Egypt. But look at that. Look what it looks like. I mean, the Eye of Horus essentially it's a diagram of the pineal gland, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy when you see it that way.
Wow.
Because they knew things, and we don't know what they knew. We don't understand how they built the pyramids. We don't understand how old they are. There's so much speculation about the true age of that civilization.
And figuring out like how they harnessed energy and all that stuff.
Idea. We have no idea. I mean, there's this group of scientists that believe that there's structures under the pyramids that go 2 kilometers deep into the earth.
Right.
And there's a lot of
I heard
controversy about that. But these guys they've multiple readings of these things, and they're pretty sure that they're accurate. And they've been accurate with other things, like other temples that are underground, that are 50 feet underground. They've mapped those things out with the same technology. So there's a precedent to it. These people knew things, and we don't understand how they knew it or what they knew, and we don't know if the people that lived in ancient Egypt that we considered ancient Egypt, like, 2000 BC, we don't know if they found those structures or if those people built those structures. There's so much weirdness with Egypt because the construction is so beyond anything else that exists anywhere on Earth. And especially when you're dealing with 4,500 plus years ago. 4,500 years ago is the conventional estimations. But there's a lot of these heretic archaeologists that think, no, this is a lot older than that. I mean, there's a King's List that goes back 30,000
that's what I've been hearing. They're
plus
saying
years.
like 30,000 years.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds nuts to people that want to have this conventional dating of the dawn of civilization being about 6,000 years ago, but there's a lot of evidence that that's not accurate. There's a lot, and I think the most profound evidence is just the vastness of the Egyptian empire and what they're just the vastness of the construction, the way they were able to bring these stones from 500 miles away through the mountains that are 80 tons. How? How did they cut them perfectly? How did they put them 120 feet in the air and put them in the ceiling? Like, what the fuck was going on then? What the fuck was going on where people were supposedly just getting out of hunter and gathering? I mean, this is like the emergence. Like a couple thousand years earlier, we're supposed to be like using stone tools and throwing them at animals. And now you have these people that build this immense structure that's perfectly aligned, a true north, south, east, and west, has 2,300,000 stones in it. What? It's aligned with Orion stars, the stars in the Orion belt. Like, what?
Maybe what happened was AI took them down too.
It might be.
Way back.
It might be. I mean,
it's bad. I'm just saying, right?
It could be.
Stuff could be. I forget who said that, but it's like, I mean, I'm all for science, but in the end of the day, no matter what we think we know, it's still just like it's like a flame in a dark night. There's so much out there beyond what we can see.
Yeah.
So I always kind of thought that myself. I mean, it's a basic thing nowadays. When I was like a kid, a lot of people have had this thought, but it's like I'm always like looking up here in the stars, and it's like, if they're saying that the stars are basically infinite, then it's infinite possibility for other planets with life on it, which basically is a certainty. Right?
It's basically certainty.
It's a certainty.
Yeah, it's basically certainty. And the more we explore in the known universe, the more we understand that it's much more likely that this is not an anomaly, that there's many, many planets out there. Who knows? Maybe an infinite number that have life.
So who knows what's going on with those Egyptians?
Well, we don't know how long ago they did this. There's just so much speculation.
Well, and the version of Egypt that we're taught about, it was like just the latest stage of it.
Oh yeah.
Like I read where it went on for so many thousands of years, and there was this whole evolution of those kingdoms. I'm talking about throughout Africa.
Yep. All the sub-Saharan area.
All of that too.
That's where they believe that Atlantis was. I mean, there's this thing called the Richat structure that again, these heretic archaeologists believe was the site of Atlantis. The Sub-Saharan Africa was a rich rainforest thousands of years ago. There's whale bones. They find whale bones in the Saharan desert.
That's crazy.
It's fucking madness, man. The history of Earth is so confusing. Like Graham Hancock says it best, we're a species with amnesia, and That's what's wild about
True. We
all
don't,
this
we don't
ancient
remember
shit.
anything.
Well, we definitely don't remember shit from 20,000 years ago. It's all just speculation. And, and people have been in this form, the form of Homo sapiens now for 300 plus thousand years. Like, who knows how long and who knows where they learn this stuff from? I mean, who knows if they learn this stuff from visitors? We don't know. We don't know. I mean, if we did get visited 20,000, 30,000 years ago, what evidence would be left? And are we being visited now? Well, we're about to find out, because if this shit keeps popping off with Israel and Iran and they start going nuclear, that was the great hope of the people that really believe in aliens, is that what they're watching over us is to make sure we don't fuck everything up, that we're so close to emerging as a type 1 civilization. We're so close to getting out of this barbaric, territorial apes with thermonuclear weapons. We're so close to passing this stage that we're in right now, as long as we don't fuck it up. And who knows how many times people might have fucked it up in the past. That might be what we're looking at when we're looking at ancient Egypt. There might be the remnants. And there's also natural disasters.
Yeah, and that's all I meant by AI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It could be our greatest natural disaster.
You get there, but I like your, it's a very positive outlook, though, when you're talking about getting to the next.
Yeah.
What'd you call it? Type
1 civilization.
What does that mean?
Okay, there's type 1, type 2, and type 3 civilizations, and I don't remember who was the one who formulated this. It might have been Sagan. Jamie, you can pull it up so I don't fuck this up. But
Come on, Jamie.
It's essentially here it is. Type 1 civilization, known as a planetary civilization, defined by our Kardashev scale as the one that's harnessed and controls all available energy on its planet. This includes utilizing all forms of energy from sources like solar, wind, geothermal, and potentially even harnessing nuclear fusion. A Type 1 civilization is also characterized by a global, technologically advanced society with a high degree of interconnectedness and the ability to manage planetary scale resources and weather. So we're on the way to that. And AI, in best case scenario, helps us achieve that. And we're close. We're probably a lot closer to that than we think. Type 2 civilization is stellar, meaning we populate other planets. Type 3 is galactic. We populate the cosmos, and we explore the cosmos.
Wow.
We're on our way to that. And it's inevitable. If we used to live in caves and now we fly in hypersonic jets, this is what's coming. And it's whether or not we fuck it up along the way.
Beam me up, man.
We should probably end on that. Charley Crockett, you're the man. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much for being here, man.
Pleasure's mine, man. Texas
It's been a lot
forever.
of fun.
Yeah, thanks
Texas
a lot.
forever. Thank you, sir.
Come on,
Thank you
man.
very much, man. Thank you. All right. Tell everybody where they can find all your shit. Do you have a social media?
Yeah, but you don't got to do all that.
Okay.
I mean, it's Charley Crockett. Charlie with an EY, like Charlie Pride.
That's it.
Crockett with 2 T's, just like Davey.
That's all they need to know.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.